Look up at the night sky. Everything you see appears orderly, predictable, governed by laws we have spent centuries understanding. Stars follow their courses. Galaxies rotate according to gravity's pull. The universe behaves as we expect it to. But something is wrong. Deep in the southern hemisphere's sky, hidden within the oldest light in the cosmos, there exists an anomaly that should not be there. Scientists call it the cold spot. You cannot see it with your eyes. No telescope pointing at that patch of sky reveals anything unusual in visible light. The stars there look normal. Galaxies appear as they should. Yet when astronomers measure the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang itself, that region registers as significantly colder than anywhere else in the observable universe. This is not a small difference. The cold spot spans an area roughly 10 times wider than the full moon appears from Earth. Its temperature drops 70 microkelvin below the surrounding regions. In some places within the spot, the temperature plunges 140 microkelvin colder. These numbers might sound tiny, but in the precisely uniform ocean of the cosmic microwave background, they are enormous. The rest of the ancient light shows variations barely exceeding 18 microkelvin. The cold spot stands out like a scar. When the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe first mapped this region in detail during the early 2000s, scientists assumed they had found a measurement error. They checked their instruments. They recalibrated their detectors. They analyzed the data using different methods. The cold spot remained. Then the European Space Agency launched the Planck satellite, equipped with sensors 3 times more sensitive than any previous mission. Planck confirmed what earlier observations suggested. The cold spot is real, it exists, and it defies our best explanations for how the universe should look. Standard cosmology predicts the cosmic microwave background should have small temperature fluctuations. These fluctuations represent density variations in the primordial plasma that filled the infant universe. Slightly denser regions became the seeds for galaxy clusters. Slightly less dense regions became cosmic voids. Our mathematical models, refined through decades of observation and theoretical work, tell us exactly what size fluctuations should appear and where. The models predict that large cold regions might span areas 1 degree wide across the sky. The cold spot spans 5 degrees. The probability of such a large anomaly forming through random chance sits around 1 to 2%. Possible, yes, but unlikely enough that scientists cannot simply dismiss it. The question became urgent. What caused this? Initial theories focused on a supervoid, perhaps a massive region of space between us and the cosmic microwave background contains far fewer galaxies than average. Light passing through this void would lose energy through a process called the integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, appearing cooler when it reaches our telescopes. In 2015, researchers announced they had found evidence for this Eridanus supervoid. The structure would need to stretch 500 million to 1 billion light-years across. If confirmed, it would rank among the largest structures humanity has ever identified in the cosmos. But then the evidence fell apart. Teams at Durham University conducted detailed surveys using the Anglo-Australian telescope. They mapped thousands of galaxies in and around the region where the supervoid supposedly existed. They compared their data against other galaxy surveys covering different parts of the sky. The results, published in 2017, contradicted the supervoid hypothesis entirely. Galaxy distribution around the cold spot looked normal, average, unremarkable. No giant void existed there. Whatever was causing the cold spot, it was not a simple absence of matter between us and the ancient light. This created a problem that keeps cosmologists awake at night. The cold spot is real. Multiple independent observations confirm its existence, yet our best conventional explanation has been ruled out. Standard models of the Big Bang cannot easily produce cold patches this enormous. The temperature should smooth out across such large scales. Something violated the expected physics. Either we misunderstand something fundamental about the early universe, or something unusual happened in that particular direction, something our current theories do not account for. Some scientists argue we should not worry too much about a 1 to 2% probability event. Unlikely things happen. Flip a coin 7 times, and you have roughly a 1% chance of getting all heads. Surprising, certainly, but not impossible. Perhaps we simply got unlucky, or lucky depending on your perspective. The universe rolled the dice and produced one weird cold spot, purely by chance. Accept it and move on. But other researchers cannot let it go. The cold spot is not just unlikely, it is unique. Scan the entire cosmic microwave background, and you will not find another comparably large cold region. If 1 to 2% probability events occur randomly, we should see multiple cold spots scattered across the sky. Instead, we see one. This uniqueness troubles scientists more than the low probability itself. The cold spot stands alone, isolated, demanding explanation. And so researchers began considering possibilities that sound like science fiction. What if the cold spot represents something that happened to our universe rather than something that happened within it? What if another reality touched ours? The idea seems absurd at first. Parallel universes belong in comic books and speculative fiction, not in serious scientific journals. Yet the mathematics of modern cosmology and quantum mechanics both point toward the existence of other universes. Not as wild speculation, but as natural consequences of our best theories about how reality works. If those theories are correct, then our universe is not alone. Countless other realities exist beyond our perception. Most remain forever separated from ours, isolated by the fundamental structure of space and time itself. We cannot visit them. We cannot communicate with them. They exist in parallel, untouchable, and unreachable. But during the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, when our universe was smaller than an atom and filled with unimaginable energy, conditions might have been different. In that earliest moment, before space expanded to separate everything, other universes might have been close enough to touch ours. And if they touched, they would have left marks, scars in the fabric of reality itself, bruises in the sky. The cold spot might be exactly such a scar, a place where another universe brushed against ours during the cosmic dawn. The collision would have sent ripples of energy through both realities, altering the temperature of the primordial plasma in a specific pattern. From our position inside one universe, looking at the cosmic microwave background, we would see a circular, cold region. The size and temperature profile would depend on when and where the collision occurred relative to our location in space and time. This is not idle speculation disconnected from observation. Physicists have created detailed mathematical models predicting what a universe collision should look like. The models make specific predictions about the geometry and temperature gradient of the resulting cold spot. When researchers compare these predictions to the actual measurements of the cold spot, they find something remarkable. The fit is not perfect, but it is close enough that the collision hypothesis cannot be dismissed, close enough that some scientists now argue we might be looking at the first direct evidence that parallel universes are not theoretical constructs, but physical realities. Realities that touched ours. Realities that might be touching us still. The year was 1957. Hugh Everett walked into his advisor's office at Princeton University carrying a doctoral thesis that would eventually revolutionize how we think about reality itself. He was nervous. He had reason to be. The paper he was about to defend proposed something so radical, so seemingly impossible, that his advisor, John Wheeler, had spent months trying to convince him to soften the language and make the claim sound less extreme. Everett refused. He knew what the mathematics told him. He knew it would sound insane. He presented it anyway. The problem Everett was trying to solve had haunted physics for decades. Quantum mechanics, the theory describing how particles and energy behave at the smallest scales, worked brilliantly. Its predictions matched experiments with stunning precision. Scientists could calculate the behavior of electrons, photons, and atoms with accuracy that beggared belief. Yet, underneath this practical success lurked a conceptual nightmare. Quantum mechanics said that particles existed in multiple states simultaneously until someone measured them. An electron could be in two places at once. A photon could have multiple energies at the same time. This superposition of states was not merely our ignorance about where the particle really was. The particle genuinely existed in all those states together. But then you measured the particle. You looked at it, detected it, interacted with it in some way. And suddenly the superposition vanished. The particle appeared in one definite state. The wave of possibilities collapsed into a single actuality. This collapse seemed to happen instantaneously, as if the mere act of observation forced nature to make a choice. The equations of quantum mechanics described the smooth evolution of the wave function beautifully, but they said nothing about collapse, nothing about measurement, nothing about when or why or how the wave function reduced from many possibilities to one reality. Physicists argued endlessly about what this meant. Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum theory, claimed that measurement was fundamentally different from ordinary physical processes. The quantum world obeyed one set of rules. The classical world of everyday objects obeyed another. Somewhere between the two, at some undefined boundary, wave function collapse occurred. But where was that boundary? Measuring devices were made of atoms. Atoms obeyed quantum mechanics. So did the electrons in the wires carrying measurement signals. So did the neurons in your brain processing those signals. Where exactly did the quantum world end and the classical world begin? Bohr never provided a clear answer. Other physicists suggested consciousness played a special role. Perhaps the wave function collapsed when a conscious observer became aware of the measurement result. This opened doors to mysticism that made many scientists deeply uncomfortable. It implied that consciousness was somehow outside the laws of physics, able to reach in and affect quantum systems in ways that normal matter could not. Some embraced this idea, others rejected it as unscientific nonsense. The debate raged without resolution. Everett approached the problem differently. He asked a simple question. What if the wave function never collapses? What if all those possible outcomes that quantum mechanics describes actually happen? Not in some abstract mathematical sense, but physically, really, concretely. The particle does not choose one position when you measure it. The particle exists in all positions, and you split into multiple versions. One version of you measures the particle here, another version measures it there. Both versions are real, both continue existing in separate branches of reality. Both feel like the only version, unaware that other copies of themselves exist in parallel worlds, experiencing different outcomes. This was Everett's many worlds interpretation. It solved the measurement problem by denying that measurement was special. It eliminated wave function collapse by saying collapse was an illusion. It removed consciousness from fundamental physics by treating observers as ordinary quantum systems that become entangled with what they measure. The interpretation was elegant, economical, and required no modifications to the equations of quantum mechanics. It simply took those equations seriously and followed them to their logical conclusion. Wheeler, Everett's advisor, was horrified, not because the mathematics was wrong. The mathematics was impeccable. Wheeler worried about how the physics community would react. He knew Everett's interpretation would sound like madness, multiple universes splitting off every time a particle was measured, countless copies of yourself existing in parallel realities. It seemed too bizarre to be true. Wheeler urged Everett to frame the ideas more cautiously, to present them as a mathematical formalism rather than a claim about physical reality. Everett refused to back down. The equations described reality. If reality included parallel universes, then parallel universes existed. Pretending otherwise was intellectual cowardice. Everett defended his thesis. in 1957. The reception was lukewarm at best. Most physicists ignored the work entirely. A few expressed interest but remained skeptical. The many worlds interpretation sat in obscurity for nearly 2 decades, while the physics community focused on other approaches to quantum mechanics. Everett eventually left academic physics, frustrated by the lack of acceptance for his ideas. He took a job in defense research and largely abandoned work on quantum foundations. For years it seemed his radical proposal would be forgotten, a footnote in the history of failed attempts to understand quantum mechanics. But the idea did not die. In the 1970s, a physicist named Bryce DeWitt read Everett's thesis and recognized its profound implications. DeWitt began promoting the many worlds interpretation, writing papers and giving talks, explaining why Everett's approach deserved serious consideration. Around the same time, David Deutsch at Oxford University picked up the thread. Deutsch realized that if parallel worlds existed, they could explain something that had been puzzling researchers working on theoretical computation. Quantum computers, then purely hypothetical devices, promised to solve certain problems exponentially faster than any classical computer could. But where would that computational power come from? Deutsch argued the power came from parallel universes. A quantum computer with 300 quantum bits could represent more states simultaneously than there were atoms in the observable universe. If only one universe existed, this seemed impossible. But if many worlds existed, the quantum computer could perform different calculations in different branches of reality. The results would interfere quantum mechanically to produce the final answer in our branch. The computer was literally borrowing computational resources from parallel universes. This was not metaphor. This was what the mathematics described. The physics community began taking Everett seriously. His mathematics predicted testable results. Experiments with quantum entanglement confirmed that particles behaved exactly as Everett's interpretation described. When two particles interacted and became entangled, they remained connected regardless of the distance separating them. Measuring one particle instantly affected the other. This should have been impossible if only one reality existed. But if both particles existed across multiple branching worlds simultaneously, the connection made perfect sense. Entanglement was not mysterious action at a distance. It was evidence that reality split every time quantum interactions occurred. Today, the many worlds interpretation stands as one of the leading candidates for understanding quantum mechanics. Research teams at major universities treat it as a serious proposal about how reality actually functions. The interpretation explains quantum behavior without adding mysterious elements or special rules for observation. Most strikingly, it makes a specific prediction that other interpretations struggle with. If you could build a quantum computer sophisticated enough to be conscious, Everett claimed it would remember existing in multiple states at once. It would have memories of calculations performed in different branches before those branches fully separated. What Everett discovered goes far beyond abstract physics. If his equations correctly describe reality, then you split every time your neurons fire. Every decision you make creates branches where you chose differently. Every moment of your existence multiplies you across countless parallel worlds. The question scientists now grapple with is whether we will ever find direct proof of these other realities. Strange signals in the cosmos suggest we might already have it, and those signals point to something even more unsettling. The parallel worlds might not be as separate as we thought. They might be touching us right now. Reality seems solid. You touch a table, and it feels firm, unyielding, definitely there. Matter appears substantial. Objects have definite positions and properties. This is the world our senses reveal, and it is difficult to imagine anything different. But quantum mechanics tells a stranger story. At the smallest scales, nothing is solid, nothing is definite. Everything exists as probability, as potential, as waves of possibility spread across space. Only when we look, when we measure, when we interact with things, does the quantum world crystallize into the definite reality we experience. An electron is not a tiny ball orbiting an atomic nucleus. It is a cloud of probability surrounding that nucleus. The electron exists everywhere in that cloud simultaneously until something forces it to appear at a specific location. This is not our ignorance about where the electron really is. The electron genuinely has no definite position until measurement occurs. Ask where the electron is before you measure it, and the question has no answer. The electron is not anywhere in particular. It is everywhere it could be, all at once, in superposition. This seems impossible because nothing in our daily experience behaves this way. Coffee cups do not exist in multiple places simultaneously. Cars have definite positions, whether you look at them or not. Buildings stand in specific locations. The moon orbits Earth along a well-defined path. Everything we interact with appears classical, definite, real. But this is an illusion created by scale. Tiny objects like electrons can maintain superposition because they interact weakly with their environment. Large objects made of countless particles lose superposition almost instantly through countless tiny interactions with the world around them. Every time an air molecule bumps into an object, information about that object's position gets entangled with the air molecule. Every time a photon bounces off a surface, the photon carries away information about where that surface is. These interactions happen constantly, trillions upon trillions of times per second for any macroscopic object. Each interaction is effectively a measurement. Each measurement entangles the object with its environment. This process, called decoherence, destroys quantum superposition so rapidly that large objects appear classical. They seem to have definite properties because the environment is constantly measuring them, forcing them into specific states. But superposition itself is completely real. The double-slit experiment proves this beyond any doubt. Take a barrier with two narrow slits cut into it. Shoot individual electrons at the barrier one at a time. Each electron is a single particle. It must go through one slit or the other, right? Classical physics says yes. Quantum physics says no. Set up a detection screen behind the barrier to record where electrons hit. After sending through many individual electrons, a pattern emerges on the screen. Not two bands corresponding to the two slits. Instead, an interference pattern appears. Multiple bands of light and shadow, created by waves interfering with each other. The only way to create an interference pattern is if each electron passes through both slits simultaneously. The electron exists in superposition, taking both paths at once. The two paths interfere quantum mechanically, creating regions where the electron is likely to hit the screen and regions where it is unlikely to hit. This is not speculation or interpretation. This is direct experimental observation, repeated thousands of times in laboratories worldwide. Individual particles genuinely exist in multiple states simultaneously. Now add detectors at each slit to measure which path the electron takes. Suddenly, the interference pattern vanishes. The electron now goes through one slit or the other, never both. Two bands appear on the screen instead of multiple bands. Observation changes the outcome fundamentally. The act of measuring which slit the electron uses destroys the superposition. The electron is forced to choose one path. Traditional interpretations claim this is wave function collapse. The electron was in superposition of both paths. Our measurement collapsed that superposition, forcing the electron to pick one path. But this raises all the uncomfortable questions again. What counts as observation? Where does collapse happen? Why do the equations of quantum mechanics say nothing about it? The mathematics describes smooth continuous evolution of the wave function with no sudden jumps, no discontinuities, no collapse. Everett's many worlds interpretation offers a radically different explanation. The electron never collapsed. You did. Before you measured which slit the electron used, you existed in superposition too. One version of you detected the electron at slit A. Another version detected it at slit B. Both versions are real. Both exist in separate branches of reality. From inside each branch, you see the electron, going through only one slit because you became entangled with it. The interference pattern vanishes, not because superposition ended, but because you joined the superposition. This applies to everything. When light enters your eye, photons interact with molecules in your retina. Those molecules change shape and trigger nerve signals. Each step involves quantum interactions. Each interaction creates entanglement. Each entanglement splits reality. You split into versions that saw slightly different patterns of light. Most branches stay very similar. The versions of you converge back together because the differences are too small to matter. But occasionally, quantum events occur at critical moments. A neuron fires or stays silent based on a quantum fluctuation. That small difference cascades through your brain, creating branches where you had different thoughts, made different decisions, took different actions. Extend this across your lifetime. Every moment contains billions of quantum events in your nervous system. Most produce branches that remain nearly identical, but some branches diverge significantly. Versions of you made different friends, chose different careers, live in different cities. Each version experiences themselves as continuous with the past, as real as the only version. None of them know the others exist. The branches are causally isolated. They cannot communicate or interact under normal circumstances. The universe exists in permanent superposition at every level. All possible arrangements of matter and energy coexist in what physicists call the universal wave function. This mathematical object describes every particle in the cosmos simultaneously. It evolves according to precise rules, with no randomness, no collapse, no special treatment for measurements. Everything that can happen does happen somewhere in the structure of the wave function. We perceive only one arrangement because we are part of the system. We ride one branch through the garden of forking paths, while countless others diverge around us, forever beyond our direct perception. If this seems impossible to accept, remember that quantum superposition has been directly measured in laboratories for particles, atoms, and even small molecules. The mathematics works perfectly. The experiments confirm the predictions. What remains controversial is whether this scales up to include human observers and entire universes. Most physicists now believe it does. The many worlds interpretation requires no modifications to quantum mechanics. It adds no extra assumptions. It simply takes the theory at face value and accepts what the equations describe. Reality is far stranger than our intuitions suggest, and far larger. How many times does reality branch? Every quantum interaction creates new worlds. But quantum interactions happen constantly, everywhere, at every level. Calculating the total rate of branching requires understanding just how many quantum events occur across the cosmos in each moment. Start with something simple, a single hydrogen atom drifting through interstellar space. Even this isolated atom undergoes quantum processes. Its electron can absorb a photon and jump to a higher energy level, then fall back down and emit another photon. Each transition is a quantum event that creates branching. Now consider that the observable universe contains roughly 10 to the power of 80 atoms. If each atom undergoes just one quantum transition per second, that represents an enormous number of branching events, but the actual rate is incomprehensibly higher. Photons from stars constantly strike atoms in interstellar gas. Cosmic rays bombard planetary atmospheres. Radioactive nuclei decay randomly. Neutrinos pass through matter and occasionally interact. Each event creates entanglement. Each entanglement spawns new branches. Think about what happens in your immediate vicinity right now. Air molecules surround you, moving randomly, colliding with each other roughly 1 trillion billion times per second. Each collision involves quantum interactions between the electron clouds of the molecules. Each interaction creates branching. Photons from your screen or the lights around you strike your retina at a rate of trillions per second. Each photon that gets absorbed by a molecule in your eye creates entanglement and spawns branches where you saw slightly different patterns of light. Your body contains approximately 37 trillion cells. Each cell contains countless molecules undergoing chemical reactions driven by quantum processes. The number of quantum events in your body alone each second is staggering. Physicist Sean Carroll has estimated the branching rate in our local vicinity exceeds billions upon billions of events per second. Scale this across the entire observable universe. Every galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars. Each star emits quadrillions of photons per second. Every photon that interacts with matter anywhere in the cosmos creates branching. Add in all the cosmic rays, all the radioactive decay, all the particle collisions happening throughout space. The total number of quantum events per second becomes so large we lack words to describe it meaningfully. The universe might split more times in 1 second than there are particles in the entire observable cosmos. Let that sink in. Every second that passes, reality branches more times than there are atoms in all the galaxies we can see. And this has been happening since the Big Bang. For nearly 14 billion years, the number of parallel worlds that have been created through quantum branching is beyond human comprehension. It vastly exceeds any number we encounter in everyday experience, or even in most scientific contexts. Does this mean the number of branches is infinite? Not necessarily. If the universe has finite size and contains a finite number of particles, then the branching rate is large but finite. Over the lifetime of the cosmos, the total number of branches could be enormous, yet countable in principle. Some physicists argue for this view. The number of branches is unimaginably huge, but not literally infinite. Others claim the number must be infinite. If space extends forever, then infinitely many quantum events happen simultaneously across the cosmos. Each second adds infinite new branches to the already infinite collection. Infinity upon infinity, growing without bound. The mathematics of quantum mechanics does not tell us which scenario is correct. The wave function describes probabilities for different outcomes. It evolves according to well-defined equations, but it does not count how many branches exist or specify whether that number is finite or infinite. This remains an open question at the foundations of physics. What we know with certainty is that the number is vast beyond imagination, and it grows constantly as quantum events continue throughout space. What about the future? Does branching continue forever, or will it eventually stop? As long as quantum events occur, branching continues. But the universe is expanding and cooling. Eventually, trillions of years from now, stars will burn out, galaxies will disperse, black holes will evaporate through Hawking radiation. The cosmos will become cold, dark, nearly empty. In this far future, quantum events will become rare. Matter will be spread so thin that interactions happen infrequently. The branching rate will slow dramatically compared to today. Yet, even an almost empty universe will have quantum fluctuations. Whatever fields pervade space will undergo quantum processes. Virtual particles will appear and vanish in the vacuum. Space itself might fluctuate at the quantum level. As long as anything exists at all, branching probably continues, just at a much reduced rate. The multiverse grows without bound forever, adding new worlds to itself eternally, though more slowly as time passes and the universe ages. Think about what this means for you personally. Every moment you exist, reality multiplies. Every thought you think creates branches. Every decision generates parallel lives. The version of you reading these words right now is already just one among countless versions that have diverged in the microseconds since you started this sentence. Other versions stopped reading. Other versions are thinking about something else entirely. Most versions remain similar enough that the differences hardly matter. But some branches carry versions of you whose lives will diverge significantly from yours over years and decades. The branching never stops. The multiplication never ends. Every quantum event in every neuron of your brain creates new parallel versions experiencing slightly different thoughts. Most merge back quickly as classical physics reasserts dominance. But critical moments occur where quantum events affect decisions. At those junctures, branches diverge substantially. You hesitate before speaking in one branch but speak immediately in another. You remember something important in one branch but forget it in another. You turn left instead of right, accept instead of decline, stay instead of leave. Each choice exists in different branches. Each version of you experiences their choice as real, consequential, theirs alone. Somewhere in the vast space of quantum outcomes, other versions of you are living lives radically different from yours. Perhaps not many, perhaps the branches that diverge so dramatically are rare, but they exist, they are real. They are happening right now in parallel streams of existence you cannot perceive or access. Your life is one thread in an incomprehensibly vast tapestry of related selves, all experiencing their version of reality, all certain they are the only one, all unaware of the countless siblings living other lives in other worlds. The splitting happens below the level of consciousness. You never feel it occur, you cannot detect it directly, but quantum mechanics says it must be happening constantly throughout your brain and body. Most physicists who work seriously with quantum theory now accept this conclusion. The universe branches, reality multiplies. You exist in countless versions across parallel worlds. This is not speculation, detached from evidence. This is what our best theories predict when we take them seriously, and those theories are tested every day in laboratories around the world. They pass every test, the mathematics is sound, the experiments confirm the predictions. The many worlds interpretation follows logically from quantum mechanics without adding anything extra. Just accept what the equations describe, and the multiverse emerges naturally. What remains unclear is whether we will ever find more direct evidence. Can we detect the branching process itself, rather than inferring it from quantum theory? Can we observe other branches, even briefly, before decoherence separates them completely? Can we build experiments that prove parallel worlds exist beyond mathematical necessity? Scientists are working on exactly these questions. The answers might come sooner than we expect, and those answers might reveal that the parallel worlds are not as separate as we have assumed. Under special circumstances, the worlds might touch, they might interact, they might leave traces we can measure. The boundary between branches might be less absolute than we thought. The parallel worlds created by quantum branching are not elsewhere in space. They do not exist in distant galaxies or beyond the cosmic horizon. You cannot travel to them by building a faster spaceship or waiting long enough for light to arrive from far away. The branches exist here, now, occupying the same space you occupy. They overlap perfectly with our reality, but remain causally disconnected. This is because the branches exist in a different kind of space entirely. Physicists call it quantum configuration space. This is a mathematical realm with far more dimensions than the familiar 3 dimensions of everyday space. For every particle in the universe, configuration space has 3 dimensions representing that particle's possible positions. Our observable universe contains roughly 10 to the power of 80 particles. The configuration space describing all those particles therefore has 3 times 10 to the power of 80 dimensions. This number is so vast that trying to visualize the space is completely hopeless. Even the most abstract mathematical representations fall short of capturing what this space looks like. Yet this configuration space is where the universal wave function lives. The wave function is a mathematical object that assigns a complex number to every point in configuration space. Those complex numbers encode the quantum state of the entire universe. As time passes, the wave function evolves according to precise rules called the Schrödinger equation. The equation determines exactly how the wave function changes from one moment to the next. Given the wave function now, you can calculate it at any future or past time with perfect accuracy. The branches of the many worlds interpretation are different regions of configuration space. When quantum events cause reality to split, what actually happens is that the wave function divides into separate peaks. Each peak represents a different branch. The peaks start out close together in configuration space, close enough that they can interfere quantum mechanically. But as decoherence proceeds, the peaks move apart. They separate in configuration space until they no longer overlap. Once separated, the branches cannot interfere. They evolve independently. Information cannot pass between them through any normal process. From inside anything to inside any single branch, you perceive a three-dimensional universe extending around you in space. You have no awareness of the other dimensions of configuration space. You cannot see or access the other peaks in the wave function. They exist right here where you are, in the same physical location, but separated in the additional dimensions of configuration space. It is not that they are far away. They are infinitely far away in configuration space, despite being in the same place in ordinary space. This explains why you cannot visit other branches. Travel in ordinary space will not get you there. You would need to move in the additional dimensions of configuration space, but you are made of particles that exist within configuration space. You cannot step outside it to move between different regions. You are trapped inside one peak of the wave function. The other peaks are inaccessible to you by any conventional means. Some physicists speculate about exceptions. Perhaps quantum tunneling could allow particles to jump between nearby peaks in the wave function under special circumstances. This would be extraordinarily rare, requiring exquisite control over quantum states and perfect isolation from environmental decoherence. But the mathematics of quantum mechanics does not forbid it, absolutely. In principle, branches that have recently separated might interfere again if all the quantum interactions that split them could be reversed. This would require undoing countless entanglements with the environment. Current technology cannot achieve this for anything larger than a few atoms, but future technology might push the boundaries. If brief interference between branches becomes possible, we might achieve something remarkable. Not travel to other branches, not permanent contact with parallel worlds, but fleeting moments where information passes between branches before they diverge again. A quantum computer maintaining coherence long enough might access computational states existing in other branches. The results of calculations performed in parallel worlds could interfere with results in our world, producing answers that no single branch could compute alone. This would not prove other branches exist beyond mathematical necessity, but it would demonstrate that quantum mechanics really does involve interference between multiple realities. David Deutsch argues this is what quantum computers already do. When a quantum computer runs an algorithm, it maintains superposition across many computational paths. Those paths exist in different branches. The final answer depends on interference between branches before measurement forces the computer to pick one output. The computer leverages temporary interaction between parallel worlds to solve problems. Where else could the computational power come from? A quantum computer with 300 quantum bits can process more states simultaneously than there are atoms in the observable universe. If only one universe exists, this seems impossible. The computer must be borrowing resources from parallel universes. Most physicists accept that quantum computers work through superposition, but remain cautious about claiming this proves other worlds exist. The debate continues. What seems clear is that quantum mechanics requires us to take superposition seriously. Whether you interpret superposition as multiple real branches or as a single system in an abstract quantum state, the mathematical description is the same. The experiments confirm the predictions. Quantum computers will become more powerful as technology improves. Eventually, we might build quantum systems sophisticated enough to test whether the many worlds interpretation is literally true or merely a useful way of thinking about the math. The other type of parallel universe, the bubble universes from cosmic inflation, exist in a different sense. These bubbles are separated by space itself. During the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, space underwent exponential expansion called inflation. This expansion smoothed out irregularities and made the universe appear uniform on large scales. But quantum fluctuations in the inflating field created bubbles where inflation ended. Our observable universe exists inside one such bubble. Outside our bubble, space continues inflating. That inflating space spawns more bubbles constantly. Each bubble becomes its own universe with its own Big Bang. The space between bubbles expands faster than light can travel through it. Not because anything moves faster than light through space, which remains impossible. Rather, space itself expands so rapidly that the distance between bubbles grows faster than light could cross that distance. This makes the bubbles causally disconnected. Light from one bubble cannot reach another bubble. Signals cannot pass between them. Information cannot flow across the inflating barrier. Each bubble becomes its own isolated island of space and time. The inhabitants of one bubble cannot know about other bubbles through direct observation. They cannot visit them. They cannot communicate with them. The bubbles are not distant places we could reach by travelling far enough. They are separate realities, isolated by inflation. The isolation appears absolute. The speed of light and the expansion of space combine to create an impenetrable barrier between bubble universes. You cannot cross from one bubble to another any more than you can travel faster than light. But there is one exception. If two bubbles form close enough together during inflation, they might collide before expansion separates them. The collision would leave marks on both bubbles. From inside one bubble, looking at the cosmic microwave background, you might see a circular pattern where the collision occurred. Something like a bruise in the sky, something like the cold spot astronomers have discovered. If the cold spot is a collision signature, it would be our first evidence that eternal inflation really produces multiple universes. And it would mean our universe literally touched another reality billions of years ago. The mark of that collision remains visible today in the oldest light we can observe. We might be seeing evidence of another universe right now, preserved in the cosmic microwave background like a fossil from the dawn of time. In 1926, Erwin Schrödinger wrote down an equation that would change everything. This equation describes how quantum systems evolve over time. It takes a wave function as input and tells you how that wave function changes from one moment to the next. For a single particle, the wave function describes all possible positions and momenta the particle could have. The Schrödinger equation shows how these possibilities flow and shift as time passes. The equation contains no randomness, no sudden jumps, no discontinuities, just smooth, continuous, deterministic evolution. The elegance of this equation cannot be overstated. It works for any quantum system, regardless of complexity. Apply it to an electron, and it predicts the electron's behavior perfectly. Apply it to a hydrogen atom, and it explains the atom's energy levels precisely. Apply it to molecules, crystals, metals, semiconductors, or any material, and the equation describes their properties accurately. Quantum mechanics, built on Schrödinger's equation and related mathematical structures, is the most successful physical theory humans have ever developed. Its predictions match experiments to absurd precision. No experiment has ever contradicted quantum mechanics. What happens when you apply this equation to multiple particles? The wave function becomes more complex. Instead of describing one particle's position, it describes all particles' positions simultaneously. This combined wave function captures correlations between particles. When particles interact and become entangled, the equation automatically accounts for this through the structure of the wave function. The mathematics becomes more involved, but remains perfectly well defined. The equation still describes smooth deterministic evolution, with no collapse or randomness. Now ask a bold question. What if you apply the Schrödinger equation to every particle in the universe? You get a single universal wave function describing the quantum state of all matter and energy everywhere. This wave function exists in that impossibly high-dimensional configuration space we discussed earlier. It evolves according to the Schrödinger equation with perfect determinism. No randomness, no collapse, no special rules for measurement or observation. Just one mathematical object, changing smoothly in time according to known physical laws. This universal wave function is the theoretical foundation of the many worlds interpretation. The wave function is reality itself. Everything that exists, has existed, or will exist is encoded in this mathematical structure. All possible arrangements of matter and energy are represented as different regions within the vast landscape of configuration space. When we observe the universe, we perceive one tiny slice of the wave function. We see one branch, the other branches remain just as real, but forever beyond our direct perception, because we exist within the wave function ourselves. We cannot step outside to see its full structure. The wave function's structure is staggering to contemplate. It exists in a space with 3 dimensions for every particle in the cosmos. Our observable universe contains roughly 10 to the power of 80 particles. The configuration space, therefore, has approximately 10 to the power of 80 dimensions. Visualizing this space is impossible. Even trying to think about it properly strains human cognition to its limits. Yet the wave function living in this space obeys relatively simple rules. The Schrödinger equation is elegant, compact, mathematically beautiful. Despite the simplicity of its governing equation, the wave function's behavior produces all the complexity we observe. Galaxies form, stars ignite, planets cool, life emerges, consciousness develops. All of this arises from the deterministic evolution of the universal wave function, according to quantum mechanical laws. There is no separate rulebook for biology, chemistry, or any other science. Everything ultimately reduces to the wave function evolving according to the Schrödinger equation. This reductionism might seem cold or mechanical, but it represents a profound unification. One equation describes everything. The many worlds interpretation takes this seriously. If the Schrödinger equation governs all of physics, including measurements and observers, then wave function collapse must be an illusion. The wave function never reduces from many possibilities to one outcome. It continues evolving smoothly, deterministically, forever. What we call measurement or observation is simply one part of the wave function becoming entangled with another part. The observer and the observed become correlated within the structure of the universal wave function. The observer splits into branches corresponding to different measurement outcomes. Each branch contains a version of the observer who saw one specific result. This raises philosophical questions that make some people uncomfortable. If the wave function contains all possible outcomes, does anything truly happen? Is there such a thing as change, or does time become an illusion? Different physicists give different answers. Sean Carroll argues that time remains real. Events still occur in sequence within each branch. The branching itself happens in time. We move forward through the wave function along a particular trajectory. Our subjective experience of time passing is genuine, not illusory. We exist in one branch at each moment, and that branch evolves into the future according to physical laws. Other physicists, like Julian Barber, claim the wave function represents a timeless reality. All moments exist simultaneously in configuration space. Past, present, and future are all equally real, spread out across the landscape of quantum possibilities. Our perception of time flowing is an artifact of how our consciousness samples the wave function. We remember the past but not the future because entropy increases in one direction. This creates an arrow of time subjectively, even though the underlying wave function is timeless. All moments exist eternally in the mathematical structure of reality. Either way, the universal wave function implies something extraordinary. Every version of history that could have occurred does occur somewhere in the vast space of quantum outcomes. Your life contains countless branches where you made different choices, experienced different events, became a different person. All these variations are unfolding right now in parallel streams of existence. They are all equally real. They all involve versions of you who feel like the only version, who have continuous memories stretching back to childhood, who experience themselves as genuinely existing. The mathematics is clear on this point. The Schrödinger equation makes no distinction between branches. It treats all parts of the wave function equally. There is no preferred branch, no special status for what we call the real outcome. Every branch is real. Every possibility is actual. The wave function encompasses all of it simultaneously. We perceive only one branch because we are part of the wave function ourselves. Our consciousness is one small fluctuation in the vast mathematical structure. We ride one particular path through quantum configuration space, while infinite other paths diverge around us in directions we cannot see or access or imagine. If this seems too abstract or mathematical, remember that the Schrödinger equation is tested constantly in laboratories worldwide. Every quantum experiment confirms that the equation correctly predicts how systems evolve. The equation works. It describes reality accurately. The many worlds interpretation simply says we should take the equation seriously without adding extra assumptions about collapse or measurement. Let the mathematics speak for itself. Follow the equations honestly to their conclusion. When you do, parallel universes emerge naturally, not as wild speculation, but as unavoidable consequences of the most successful physical theory humans have ever developed. Two particles meet in the void of space. Before this encounter, each particle had its own independent existence. Particle A followed its own trajectory through space and time. Particle B followed a different path. They were separate entities, unconnected, moving through the universe without awareness of each other. Then their paths crossed. Their electron clouds overlapped. They interacted. And in that instant, something profound occurred. The two particles stopped being separate. They became entangled. Quantum entanglement is one of the strangest phenomena in all of physics. Once two particles interact and become entangled, they share a quantum state, even if you separate them by millions of miles. Measure a property of particle A and you instantly know something about particle B. The correlation appears faster than light could travel between the particles. This bothered Einstein enormously. He called it spooky action at a distance and believed it proved quantum mechanics must be incomplete. He thought there must be hidden variables, information carried by the particles that explained the correlations through normal means. But Einstein was wrong. John Bell proved in 1964 that no hidden variable theory could reproduce quantum mechanical predictions. He derived mathematical inequalities that any local hidden variable theory must satisfy. Experiments violate those inequalities. The violations have been confirmed thousands of times in laboratories around the world using increasingly sophisticated methods. The correlations between entangled particles are real. They happen instantaneously. No signal passes between the particles because they are not truly separate anymore. They are two parts of one quantum system. Understanding what this means requires letting go of classical intuitions. Before entanglement, you could describe each particle with its own wave function. Particle A had a wave function, specifying its possible positions, momenta, spins. Particle B had a separate wave function with its own possibilities. After entanglement, separation becomes impossible. A single combined wave function now describes both particles together. This joint wave function captures correlations between the particles. It says that if particle A is in state X, then particle B must be in state Y. These correlations are built into the structure of the wave function itself. The particles remain correlated regardless of how far apart they travel. Move them to opposite sides of the galaxy, and the correlation persists. Measure particle A and you learn information about particle B instantly. This is not because measuring particle A sends a signal to particle B. No signal propagates. The correlation exists because the two particles share a single quantum state. They are one system with two spatially separated parts. Measuring one part reveals information about the other part through the structure of their shared wave function. In the many worlds interpretation, entanglement is the mechanism that creates branches. Every time particles interact and become entangled, the universal wave function splits. Before entanglement, one branch existed. After entanglement, multiple branches exist corresponding to different possible outcomes of the interaction. Each branch contains a different combination of particle states. The branches all exist simultaneously, spreading out in quantum configuration space, like roads diverging in a forest. Think about what this means for your daily experience. Your brain processes information through electrochemical signals. Neurons fire or stay silent based on whether ion channels open or close. Those ion channels respond to molecules changing shape. The molecules change shape when electrons move between different energy levels. Those electrons obey quantum mechanics. They exist in superposition before interactions force them into specific states. When an electron in your brain interacts with other particles, entanglement occurs. The universal wave function branches. Reality splits. This happens constantly. Billions of quantum events occur in your brain every second. Most of these events produce branches that remain nearly identical. The version of you in one branch thinks almost exactly the same thoughts as the version in another branch. The differences are too small to notice or matter. Classical physics dominates at the scale of neurons and thoughts. Quantum fluctuations usually wash out without affecting anything macroscopic, but occasionally a quantum event occurs at a critical moment. A neuron sits precisely at threshold, ready to fire if it receives just one more input. That input depends on a molecule being in a particular quantum state. The molecule exists in superposition. The wave function branches. In one branch, the neuron fires. In another branch, it stays silent. These different neural states lead to different thoughts, different decisions, different actions. Scale this across billions of neurons operating continuously throughout your life. The number of branches where your thoughts differ from this moment grows rapidly. Most branches contain versions of you thinking nearly identical thoughts right now. You're reading this sentence and processing its meaning in the vast majority of nearby branches. But in some branches you got distracted, in others you misread a word. In rare branches, a quantum fluctuation caused a significantly different neural cascade, and you are thinking about something completely different right now. These divergences accumulate over time. the branches separate. They become distinct realities, containing distinct versions of you living distinct lives. Entanglement happens everywhere, not just in brains. Air molecules surrounding you collide roughly 1 billion times per second. Each collision creates entanglement between the molecules. Each entanglement spawns branches. Photons from your screen strike your retina at a rate of trillions per second. Each photon that gets absorbed creates entanglement and branches reality. Cosmic rays from distant supernovae strike molecules in Earth's atmosphere constantly. Each collision entangles the particles and creates new branches. Radioactive atoms in rocks beneath your feet decay randomly. Each decay entangles particles and branches reality. The splitting never stops. It occurs continuously at every point in space throughout the cosmos. The number of branches grows exponentially. Start with one universe. A single entanglement event creates 2 branches. Another entanglement creates 4 branches total. After just 100 entanglement events, more branches exist than there are atoms in the observable universe. After 1,000 events, the number exceeds anything we can describe with ordinary notation. The universe we experience is one branch in this exponentially exploding tree of possibilities. Every other branch is equally real. Every other branch contains observers experiencing themselves as existing in the one true reality. None of them know about the others. The branches are causally isolated once decoherence completes. Information cannot pass between them through normal means. Yet physicists now discuss whether brief moments of interference might occur between nearby branches before they fully separate. If 2 branches remain close in quantum configuration space, they can still interfere quantum mechanically. The interference creates observable effects. This is what happens in the double slit experiment. The electron passes through both slits in different branches. Those branches remain close enough to interfere. The interference produces the pattern we observe on the detection screen. After detection, the branches fully separate. Interference stops. Each branch evolves independently. David Deutsch argues that understanding interference between branches is key to understanding quantum mechanics itself. The theory describes how different branches interact before they decohere and separate completely. The wave function is not just a mathematical tool, it is a real structure spanning multiple realities. When we calculate using quantum mechanics, we account for how branches interact and interfere. This is why quantum mechanics works. This is where its predictive power comes from. The theory describes the physics of the multiverse, and if Deutsch is right, we might be able to engineer situations where branches interact in controllable ways. Brief communication between parallel worlds might become possible if we achieve sufficient control over quantum systems. Not travel between branches, not permanent contact, but fleeting moments where information passes between realities before they diverge beyond reach. In the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, something extraordinary happened. Space itself began expanding exponentially. The universe doubled in size, then doubled again, then doubled again. This happened so rapidly that in less than 1/trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second, a region smaller than an atom inflated to larger than the observable universe we see today. Physicists call this period cosmic inflation. It solves several puzzles about why the universe looks the way it does. But it also had an unexpected consequence. Alan Guth proposed inflation in 1980 to explain why the universe appears so uniform on large scales. When we look at distant galaxies in different directions, they have almost identical properties. Same temperature, same density, same physical laws. This seems surprising because those regions are so far apart that light has not had time to travel between them since the Big Bang. How did they become so similar if they have never been in contact? Inflation answers this. Before inflation, Those regions were close together. They had time to reach equilibrium. Then inflation stretched space so rapidly that regions originally in contact became separated by vast distances. Inflation also explains why space appears flat rather than curved. Any initial curvature gets stretched out by the exponential expansion. After inflation ends, the universe looks flat on large scales, even if it started with significant curvature. Observations of the cosmic microwave background confirm these predictions with remarkable precision. The universe is flat to within measurement uncertainty. Temperature variations across the sky match exactly what inflation predicts. The theory works. It explains what we observe. But inflation comes with a consequence Guth recognized immediately. Once inflation starts in one region, it probably never stops everywhere. Quantum fluctuations in the field driving inflation create bubbles where inflation ends locally. Our observable universe exists inside one such bubble. Normal expansion began here. Matter and energy emerged. Galaxies formed over billions of years. But outside our bubble, space continues inflating exponentially. And that eternally inflating space spawns more bubbles constantly. Each bubble becomes its own universe with its own Big Bang. This is eternal inflation. The process never ends globally, even though it ends locally inside bubbles. New universes form continuously throughout eternity. They expand and cool, stars ignite, planets form. Perhaps life emerges in some bubbles. Perhaps consciousness develops. Each bubble universe can be infinite in size, with room for infinite galaxies and infinite possibilities. And there are infinite numbers of bubbles forming constantly in the eternally inflating space outside. Andre Linde at Stanford University refined this picture and showed that eternal inflation is not just possible, but almost inevitable. Even if inflation stops in most regions, quantum fluctuations will always restart it somewhere. You cannot turn inflation off permanently across all of space. The multiverse of bubble universes is the natural outcome of our best theory of the early universe. This is not wild speculation added to explain fine-tuning or solve philosophical puzzles. This is a prediction of the theory developed to explain why the universe looks uniform and flat. The implications are staggering. Our universe is not unique. It is one bubble among infinite bubbles. Each bubble has its own physical properties. The constants of nature, the strength of forces, the masses of particles, all might differ from bubble to bubble. Most bubble universes would have parameters that prevent interesting structure from forming. No stars, no planets, no complexity, no life. A few lucky bubbles get parameters that allow the rich structure we observe. We find ourselves in one of those rare bubbles, not because such bubbles are common, but because we could only exist in bubbles that permit observers. The bubbles are separated by eternally inflating space. That space expands faster than light can travel through it, not because anything moves faster than light, which remains impossible. Rather, space itself grows so rapidly that the distance between bubbles increases faster than light could cross that distance. This makes the bubbles causally disconnected. Light from one bubble cannot reach another bubble. Signals cannot pass between them. Information cannot flow across the inflating barrier. Each bubble becomes its own isolated island of space and time. The inhabitants of one bubble, beings like us, cannot know about other bubbles through direct observation. We cannot visit them. We cannot send messages to them. The other bubble universes remain forever beyond our reach, separated by exponentially expanding space that creates an impenetrable barrier. For all practical purposes, those other universes might as well not exist. We cannot interact with them in any way. They have no effect on our universe, and we have no effect on theirs. Almost. There is one exception. If two bubbles form close enough together during inflation, they might collide before the expansion separates them permanently. Think about two bubbles nucleating in a sea of inflating space. Each bubble represents a region where inflation has ended and normal expansion has begun. If the bubbles form far apart, the space between them inflates so rapidly that they move away from each other faster than they can expand toward each other. They never touch, but if two bubbles nucleate very close together, they might expand into each other before the inflating space between them pushes them apart. What happens in a collision? The bubbles do not merge. They cannot combine into one larger bubble because each bubble has already committed to its own vacuum state with its own physical constants. Instead, the collision releases energy at the boundary where the bubbles meet. This energy propagates through both bubbles as a spherical wave. The wave disturbs the vacuum, creating patterns in the density of matter and energy. These patterns get frozen into the structure of both universes as they expand. From our position inside one bubble, we could potentially observe the effects of such a collision. Looking at the cosmic microwave background, we would see a circular pattern where the collision occurred. The pattern would appear as a hot or cold spot depending on the details of the collision. The size of the spot would depend on when and where the collision happened relative to our position in space and time. Physicists have created detailed mathematical models predicting what collision signatures should look like. The predictions are specific enough to test against observations. And we might have found one. The cold spot in the cosmic microwave background has properties consistent with a bubble collision. Its size, shape, and temperature profile match theoretical predictions reasonably well. The fit is not perfect, but it is close enough to take seriously. If the cold spot really is a collision signature, it would be our first direct evidence that eternal inflation produces multiple universes. It would mean our universe physically touched another reality. The collision happened nearly 14 billion years ago, during the first moments after our local Big Bang. We are seeing the consequences now, preserved in the oldest light we can observe, a cosmic bruise from when realities touched. The cosmic microwave background is the oldest light we can see. It comes from everywhere, filling the entire sky uniformly. This radiation has been travelling through space for nearly 14 billion years, ever since the universe cooled enough for atoms to form and light to travel freely. Before that moment, the cosmos was too hot and dense. Photons could not travel far before scattering off charged particles. The universe was opaque, like looking into a thick fog. But when the temperature dropped below about 3,000 degrees, electrons combined with nuclei to form neutral atoms. Light broke free and began its long journey through space. That light carries information about the universe as it existed 380,000 years after the Big Bang. This is long before stars formed, long before galaxies organized themselves, long before any of the structures we see in the cosmos today existed. The light shows us the universe in its infancy, still smooth and simple, but containing tiny variations that would eventually grow into all the complexity we observe. Temperature differences of just a few parts in 100,000 across different regions of the sky reveal where matter was slightly more dense or slightly less dense. Those denser regions would collapse under gravity to become galaxy clusters. The less dense regions would expand into cosmic voids. Scientists can predict what this pattern should look like based on our understanding of physics. The tiny quantum fluctuations during inflation get stretched to cosmic scales and imprinted as density variations in the early universe. These variations evolve according to the well-understood physics as the universe expands and cools. Our mathematical models, refined through decades of observation and theoretical work, predict the statistical properties of the cosmic microwave background precisely. How large the temperature variations should be, how they should be distributed across the sky, how patterns on different angular scales should correlate with each other. When we measure the actual cosmic microwave background using satellites like WMAP and Planck, the observations match predictions almost perfectly. This is a spectacular success for modern cosmology. The Big Bang model, combined with inflation and our understanding of particle physics, accurately describes the universe as it existed nearly 14 billion years ago, almost perfectly. The cold spot does not fit the pattern. It is too large, too cold, too unusual. If it formed through random quantum fluctuations during inflation, we should see similar anomalies elsewhere in the sky. But we do not. The cold spot stands alone. This uniqueness troubles cosmologists more than the low probability. Unlikely things happen, yes, but unique, unlikely things demand explanation. When observations do not match predictions, we learn something. Either our predictions are wrong, meaning our understanding of the physics is incomplete, or something unusual happened that our standard models do not account for. The cold spot forces us to consider both possibilities seriously. Maybe our models of inflation need modification. Maybe something happened during the early universe that we have not included in our theories. Or maybe, just maybe, the cold spot is telling us about an event that our standard models never considered because they assume our universe evolved in isolation. Laura Massini-Houghton at the University of North Carolina has proposed that the cold spot represents a scar from when our universe collided with another universe during the inflationary period. Her proposal builds directly on eternal inflation theory. If quantum fluctuations constantly create new bubble universes in the inflating space, then occasionally two bubbles will nucleate close enough to touch. The collision releases energy at the boundary between bubbles. This energy propagates through both bubbles as a spherical wave, disturbing the vacuum and affecting the density of the primordial plasma. From inside our bubble, looking back at the cosmic microwave background, we would see a circular pattern. The center of the circle marks the direction where the collision occurred. The radius depends on how far away the collision was in space and time relative to our current position. The temperature profile, how the temperature varies from the center to the edge of the pattern, depends on the details of the collision. How much energy was released, what the properties of the other bubble were, whether the collision was head-on or grazing. Massini-Houghton created mathematical models to calculate what these collision signatures should look like. The models are based on well-established physics. General relativity describes how space and time curve. Quantum field theory describes how energy propagates through the vacuum. String theory suggests how different bubble universes might have different vacuum states. Combine these theories and you get specific predictions for the size, shape and temperature profile of collision signatures in the cosmic microwave background. When she compared her predictions to the actual properties of the cold spot, she found a reasonable match, not perfect, but closer than random chance would suggest. Other physicists have performed similar calculations. Matthew Kleban at New York University created independent models of bubble collisions. His predictions also match the cold spot reasonably well. The consistency between different theoretical approaches strengthens the case that the cold spot might be a collision signature. If multiple independent calculations all predict similar patterns, and those patterns match what we observe, that is evidence worth taking seriously. Not proof, but enough to justify further investigation. The Planck satellite provided crucial data for testing these ideas. Launched in 2009, Planck mapped the cosmic microwave background with 3 times higher resolution than any previous mission. If the cold spot was just instrumental noise, or a statistical fluke that would wash out with better data, Planck would reveal that. Instead, Planck confirmed the cold spot's existence and sharpened its boundaries. The feature is real. It appears in multiple independent observations using different instruments on different satellites over different years. This is not measurement error. Planck also allowed scientists to search for additional collision signatures. Some theories predict eternal inflation should have caused numerous collisions, not just one. Different bubble universes forming throughout the inflating space would occasionally collide with ours multiple times during our early history. Each collision would leave a mark in a different part of the sky. Early analysis of Planck data suggested possible evidence for 4 separate collision signatures. Later, more careful analysis found that these signals could be explained as random statistical noise. No definitive proof of multiple collisions emerged. The cold spot remains the strongest candidate. It sits at the edge of what standard cosmology can explain through chance. The probability is low enough, around 1 to 2%, that exploring alternative explanations makes sense, but not so low that we can rule out random fluctuation with confidence. This is frustrating for scientists who want clear answers. The evidence is ambiguous. It points towards something unusual without proving anything definitively. More data is needed. Future observations might resolve the question. The Simons Observatory and CMBS-4 project will map the cosmic microwave background with unprecedented precision starting in the late 2020s. These instruments will have resolution fine enough to reveal subtle structure within the cold spot. If it is a collision signature, theoretical models predict specific geometric properties. The temperature should vary in particular ways from center to edge. There might be fine-scale features invisible to current instruments. Finding these predicted features would strongly support the collision hypothesis. Not finding them would cast doubt on the idea. Gravitational waves offer another approach. The collision between bubble universes should produce gravitational waves, ripples in space-time itself. These waves would travel through the universe at the speed of light, carrying information about the collision. The Laser Interferometer space antenna, planned for launch in the 2030s, will detect gravitational waves from the early universe. If bubble collisions occurred, LISA should see their gravitational wave signatures. The pattern of waves would be distinctive, different from other sources. Detecting collision signatures in gravitational wave data would provide independent confirmation that the cold spot really does mark where our universe touched another reality. For now, we wait. The experiments are planned. The instruments are being built. Within 2 decades, we should have data capable of answering whether the cold spot is a statistical accident or evidence that parallel universes are not just theoretical possibilities, but physical realities that have interacted with ours. The ancient light carries secrets from the cosmic dawn. We are learning to read those secrets. What we discover might change everything we thought we knew about our place in the larger reality. Change the strength of gravity by 1 part in 10,000 billion, and stars cannot form. Increase the electromagnetic force slightly, and atomic nuclei fly apart. Decrease it slightly, and atoms cannot hold together. Adjust the mass of the electron by a small percentage, and chemistry becomes impossible. The mass of the up quark, the strength of the weak nuclear force, the value of the cosmological constant, all appear precisely calibrated to allow complex structures like galaxies, stars, planets, and life to exist. This is the fine-tuning problem. The constants of nature could have any values as far as the fundamental laws of physics are concerned. There is nothing in our theories that requires them to be what they are, yet they fall within incredibly narrow ranges that permit structure formation. Change almost any constant by more than a few percent, and the universe becomes sterile. Too hot for atoms to form, too cold for nuclear reactions to occur, too unstable for structures to persist. The range of life-permitting values is tiny compared to the range of possible values the constants could have. Scientists have catalogued dozens of these apparently fine-tuned parameters. The list grows as we understand more about physics and cosmology. Each discovery makes the universe seem more improbably calibrated for our existence. The odds of all these constants falling into their narrow life-permitting ranges by chance appears vanishingly small. So small that it demands explanation. Why are the constants what they are? Why is the universe structured in a way that allows complexity and observers? Some people see design in this fine-tuning. If the universe appears constructed for life, perhaps something or someone constructed it that way. This is the teleological argument, updated for modern physics. The fine-tuning is so extreme that attributing it to chance seems unreasonable. Better to accept that the universe was intentionally designed with properties that would permit observers to emerge. This is the strong anthropic principle. The universe must have properties compatible with observers because it was made for observers. Most scientists resist this reasoning for several reasons. First, it stops inquiry. Saying the universe is fine-tuned for life explains nothing about why the constants have their specific values. It restates the observation as a conclusion without providing any mechanism or process that could produce the fine-tuning. Second, it assumes life as we know it is the only possible form of complexity. Perhaps different constants would produce different kinds of structure and complexity, maybe even different forms of observers. We cannot know what other possibilities might exist in parameter space. Third, the design hypothesis is unfalsifiable. No observation could ever disprove it because any outcome can be attributed to the designer's intentions. The multiverse offers an alternative explanation that remains within the bounds of science. If countless universes exist with different physical constants, then some will have the right values purely by chance. We find ourselves in one of those universes because we could not exist in the others. The apparent fine-tuning is a selection effect, not evidence of design. We observe a life-permitting universe, not because such universes are common or because our universe was designed for life, but because we can only exist in universes where our kind of life is possible. This is the weak anthropic principle. Our existence as observers constrains what kind of universe we can observe. Think about an analogy. Imagine winning the lottery. The odds of any particular ticket winning are tiny, yet someone wins. That person might feel special, chosen, as if fate selected them specifically. But this is an illusion. In a lottery with millions of tickets, the probability that someone wins is high, even though the probability of any particular person winning is low. From the winner's perspective, it seems miraculous. From a broader perspective, it is inevitable. The multiverse works similarly. Each universe is a lottery ticket. Most tickets are losers, producing universes that cannot develop complexity. Perhaps they are too hot. Perhaps gravity is too strong and everything collapses immediately. Perhaps the electromagnetic force is too weak and atoms cannot form. Perhaps the expansion rate is wrong and the universe either collapses too quickly or expands too fast for structures to form. Most parameter combinations produce boring universes, but some tickets win. Some combinations of constants allow interesting things to happen. Stars ignite, heavy elements form through nuclear fusion, planets cool and develop chemistry. Given enough lottery tickets, enough universes with different parameters, winning tickets become inevitable. We hold a winning ticket not because winning is common or because we were chosen, but because we could not be here to examine a losing ticket. Observers can only exist in universes that permit observers. This explains fine-tuning without invoking design or purpose. Critics argue this explanation is unsatisfying. If anything can happen somewhere in the multiverse, the theory loses predictive power. You cannot use it to calculate what we should observe because every observation is possible in some universe. The multiverse becomes a just-so story, an excuse for why things are the way they are without providing real understanding. Some physicists dislike multiverse explanations for exactly this reason. They feel we are giving up on finding deeper principles that could explain why the constants have their specific values. Defenders respond that the multiverse is not an assumption added to solve the fine-tuning problem. It is a prediction of inflation and quantum mechanics, theories developed for completely different reasons. We follow the mathematics where it leads. Eternal inflation naturally produces bubble universes with different vacuum states. The many worlds interpretation naturally produces branches with different quantum outcomes. If those theories are correct, and our best evidence suggests they are, then the multiverse exists whether we like it or not. Using it to explain fine-tuning is not giving up on deeper understanding. It is accepting what our theories tell us about reality. Moreover, the multiverse can make predictions. If our constants are typical for life-permitting universes, we can calculate what values we should expect to observe. Some predictions work well. The cosmological constant is tiny but not zero, which matches what we would expect if it varied across bubble universes, and we could only exist in universes where it falls in a narrow range. Other predictions are more difficult to test, but the framework is scientific. It makes claims about reality that can, in principle, be confirmed or ruled out through observation. The debate continues without resolution. Some physicists embrace the multiverse as the best explanation for fine-tuning. Others seek alternative explanations through new physics that might determine the constants uniquely. Still others argue we should not be surprised by fine-tuning because we could not exist to observe any other values. The question touches deep issues about explanation, probability, and what counts as satisfying science. What seems clear is that fine-tuning is real. The constants really are in narrow ranges that permit complexity. Whether this points to design, to a multiverse, or to deeper physics we have not yet discovered remains one of the most profound open questions in cosmology. You drift again into the widening dark, but this time something feels different. The space ahead of you is not merely empty, it's pressurized, as though two realities are leaning against one another with increasing insistence. It begins subtly, a soft tremor, a hush, a sensation you cannot name. You feel as though a veil, once impossibly thick, is beginning to thin. The stars around you shimmer with a slight irregularity, like reflections in a disturbed pool of water. Their light bends not due to gravity, but due to something else, an unseen influence brushing against this universe, nudging it, distorting it gently, almost curiously. You sense a presence behind the distortion, something vast, something patient, something aware. You drift deeper. The darkness shifts, not emptiness, but texture, not void, but crowded silence. Webb, in your earlier sections, revealed strangeness in cosmic infancy. But what you witness now is strangeness in the present, anomalies forming not in ancient light, but in the fabric around you, as if the hidden reality is active, pressing closer, pushing against the edges of our universe. A faint glow forms ahead, not starlight, not familiar radiation, a thin sheet of rippling illumination, like a membrane between worlds. You approach. As you drift nearer, the membrane reacts. Waves travel across its surface, shadows dance beneath it. You realize you're witnessing the interface, a literal boundary between our universe and something beyond. It quivers with motion from the other side, as though entities or forces that are brushing against it in return. Reality isn't separate, it's connected. You reach toward the membrane, and it responds, expanding outward like a breath. The glow brightens, revealing patterns that look almost biological, branching filaments, pulsing nodes of energy, rhythmic undulations that resemble thought patterns. It is alive in a way, or at least reactive, consciousness-like. You withdraw slightly, and the membrane settles again. From the corner of your vision, the stars warp. A cluster flickers, vanishing for a moment before reappearing. Not because they are gone, but because the membrane momentarily folded over them, overlapping our reality with the hidden one. Overlapping, touching, interpenetrating. You drift along the membrane, watching shapes move beneath its surface. Not forms like creatures, but distortions in geometry, configurations that mimic movement, ripples resembling intent. Every wave feels like communication, not to you specifically, but to the membrane itself. a dual reality in conversation. You drift further still, and the membrane thins to a barely visible haze. Through it, you glimpse something impossible. Structures not made of matter, but of configuration. Patterns woven from the rules of another universe entirely. Strings of existence vibrating differently. Dimensions braided in unfamiliar orientations. Shapes with angles that do not exist here. The hidden reality is not empty nor hostile. It is simply other. You move through a region where the membrane fluctuates wildly, ripples spreading like storms. In these places, the two realities draw dangerously close, almost intersecting. The membrane here is translucent, and through it you see flashes, a landscape that is not space, movements that are not life, geometry that is not physics. The realities touch, and each touch alters something. A star flickers, a nebula elongates, a gravitational field stretches unnaturally. You drift away from the chaotic overlap and into a quieter zone. Here, the membrane oscillates gently, with a rhythm like a heartbeat. You realize you are witnessing stabilization, as if the two realities naturally find balance once they cease resisting one another. A coexistence. But the closer you drift, the more you sense something profound. The hidden reality is not merely pressing against ours, it's learning, adapting, attuning. You feel a chill, not of fear, but of awe, because something on the other side senses your universe, and it is responding. The membrane pulses softly, and you feel a resonance within your own thoughts, like the boundary is not just between universes, but between consciousnesses. You realize now why the earlier anomalies were increasing, why the 10 previous sections culminated in rising contact events. The hidden reality isn't static, it's approaching, deliberately or naturally. And the thinning membrane is not a failure, it's a transition. You drift back from the boundary, understanding that this is only the beginning. A hidden universe brushes against ours, a universe with different laws, different physics, different possibilities. And soon the contact will deepen. You turn your gaze into the dark, ready to follow this new path, the path that leads to understanding the nature of the hidden reality itself. You drift onward, leaving the trembling boundary behind, but now you see the consequences, the unmistakable signs that the hidden reality does not remain confined to distant cosmic membranes. It leaves traces, footprints, distortions. It moves, silently, invisibly, through our universe. And now you must follow those signs. At first they appear small, a star blinking in a way that defies known oscillation patterns. A nebula forming shapes that feel intentional, almost symbolic. Cosmic rays arriving in precise, unnatural intervals. You drift closer to a cluster of stars where one shines with an impossible spectrum. Its light splits into patterns resembling interference, not with itself, but with a second source that isn't there, as if another star in another universe is shining through the cracks. You watch as the light flickers again, a pulse, then another pulse, then a longer one, as though the unseen source is adjusting, aligning, trying to synchronize. The star shimmers, its energy shifting. The hidden reality is brushing against it, modifying it, influencing it, not destroying it, interacting. You drift deeper into the cluster, and there you see the next sign, a gravity well bending in the wrong direction. Gravity curves space in predictable ways, but here the curvature twists unexpectedly, like a whirlpool touched by an unseen current. The force pulling on this region does not belong to our universe's mass. Something else, something from beyond, is tugging on it. You follow the distortion until it leads you to a hazy region where the cosmic fabric feels stretched, almost bruised. You drift slowly through it, sensing the residue of an encounter. This is where the hidden reality passed through, not entirely and not physically, but like a shadow leaning across a surface. Ahead of you, particles vibrate with irregular frequency. They oscillate as though shaken by different dimensional rules. Their motions are wrong, but consistent. And consistency is the signature of intelligence, or intention, or at least structure. You move closer. Inside the vibration field, you sense a deeper truth. The unseen is not simply touching at random. Its contact forms patterns, routes, or pathways, or currents along which it travels. Like migratory channels between realities, you follow one channel. It flows like a river through space, invisible yet powerful, pushing matter aside as it flows. Along this river, stars twist slightly, gas accumulates, and dust spirals into strange formations. You drift into the spiral and feel something you hadn't expected, a presence, not watching, not communicating, but existing, a consciousness without form, a mind made of configuration, a being or collective that exists in the hidden layer and casts only a faint echo into ours. You sense it passing through you, yet it leaves you untouched physically. Only your awareness is perturbed, shaken, expanded. You are at the edge of two minds, one human, one from another existence, brushing against each other through the thinning membrane. The presence moves on, drifting along the channel until its influence fades. You follow the trail. Ahead, a galaxy rotates in a strange oscillation. Its arms pulse slightly, as though responding to an external rhythm. The hidden reality has touched it, maybe many times, sculpting its structure subtly, delicately. Some galaxies, you realize, may owe their shapes not entirely to gravity, but to interactions with the unseen. You drift beyond the galaxy, where space seems to ripple gently. A long curtain-like distortion flows across the void. Behind it, stars blur briefly, replaced by impossible silhouettes, outlines of shapes that cannot exist here. Dimensional projections, creatures and objects, structures. You cannot tell, but whatever they are, their existence is undeniable. The hidden reality is not separate. It overlaps. It influences. It moves. You drift back into the quiet dark, and the signs continue to multiply the farther you travel. Gravity shifting where no mass exists. Light bending where no lens exists. Fields vibrating where no energy source exists. Stars pulsing in synchronized patterns. Space rippling like fabric, stirred by an unseen hand. These are not accidents. They are interactions. The hidden reality is moving closer, brushing more deeply against our universe, leaving clearer marks with every passing contact. And you know what comes next? If the unseen can brush against us, if it can move through us, then soon it may try to communicate. You drift into the darkness, preparing for the next encounter, the next revelation, the next layer of the hidden reality that is reaching out through the cosmic veil. You drift farther now, deeper along the faint channel carved by the unseen, where the boundaries between universes blur like breath on glass. The signs you followed, distorted gravity, altered starlight, vibrating particles, synchronized pulses, all led toward a single, undeniable conclusion. The hidden reality is no longer just touching our universe, it is communicating. Not in words, not in symbols, but in disturbances. Everything it does leaves a pattern. You drift toward a region of space where those patterns become clearer. A wide expanse where no stars shine, but space itself glows faintly, as though lit from beneath by a submerged world. As you enter, the silence feels sharpened, intentional. You feel watched, but not threatened, observed, but not captured. Ahead, ripples appear in the faint glow, expanding circles like sound waves, yet silent. Each ripple passes through you with a sensation that is neither warmth nor cold, but something new entirely. A message, perhaps, or a greeting. The ripples repeat. 3 identical waves, a pause, 2 shorter ones, a sequence, a pattern. You drift into the center of the waves, and the glow intensifies. The membrane between universes, once thin and trembling, becomes transparent here. Not fully open, but more permeable. The outlines of the hidden reality form faint silhouettes. Not creatures, not machines, not anything familiar, just configurations. twisting shapes of geometry and energy, shifting like living algorithms. They ripple in harmony with the waves. And suddenly you understand the waves aren't random, that they're responses. The hidden layer is answering something. But what? You drift deeper, and the waves shift subtly. They overlap with gravitational anomalies in predictable cycles. You follow the cycle, tracing the rhythm. It repeats with precision. This is not noise. This is intention. The hidden reality is speaking in the only medium it has to reach ours. Distortions in the fabric of space, pulses in energy fields, modulations in light. It is communicating through physics. Another wave rolls over you, stronger this time. A deep oscillation that vibrates through your perception. It carries structure. Not language exactly, but pattern encoded in amplitude. You close your awareness to noise and focus on the oscillation. 4 long pulses, a pause, 1 short, another pause, 3 long. A sequence that resembles logic, not randomness. Cause and effect, signal and response. You drift further, and the glowing region sharpens into strands, threads weaving through space like a multidimensional tapestry. The threads hum softly, each vibrating at a slightly different frequency. Their harmony feels deliberate. You sense an intelligence behind the hum. Not singular, not centralized, but distributed, like the thought of a universe-sized organism. The hidden reality is not a place. It is a network, a thinking lattice, and it is learning to touch ours. You move toward a thread pulsing brighter than the others, and as you approach, the membrane between realities bends inward, like 2 fingertips pressing gently against opposite sides of thin cloth. Something on the other side is aware of you. It reaches, not physically, but via resonance. A faint buzz fills your mind, like the static before a message. Then the buzz grows into a soft, stabilized vibration. A feeling emerges from the other side. Not a thought, not a word, a recognition. It knows you see it. The vibration deepens, the membrane ripples, and for a moment, just a moment, the 2 universes align. You glimpse a shape beyond the barrier, a vast network of luminous veins connecting geometric chambers that pulse like hearts, a reality where structure is alive, a universe built from thinking patterns rather than matter. It withdraws slightly, the contact too intense to sustain. The ripples slow, the glow dims, the buzzing fades, but the understanding remains. The hidden reality has noticed ours. It is reaching toward us, testing the boundary, studying the interface, and soon the messages will become clearer. You drift back, aware that you've crossed a threshold. The universe is no longer alone, and neither are you. You turn toward the next distortion, forming a head, the next attempt at communication. You drift toward the new distortion, noticing immediately that it differs from every anomaly before it. It's not a ripple, or a vibration, or a gravitational echo. It is more structured, almost architectural. As you approach, the distortion sharpens into a shape, suspended in the void. A hexagonal frame of light, perfectly symmetrical, rotating slowly in silence. It is not a natural formation. It is not created by stars or gas or gravity. This is deliberate geometry, a signal, a marker, a doorway. You drift closer and the hexagon reacts. Its edges brighten and flare, sending out faint beams of patterned light. These beams intersect, forming a mesh of triangles and spirals around you. The structure is scanning you. Not your body, not your presence, but your dimensional signature, the imprint of your universe's physical rules. The hidden reality is mapping the boundary, understanding how to communicate more efficiently. Studying the structure of our existence, you sense no threat, only precision, curiosity, a desire to understand. The hexagon slows its rotation, locking its orientation toward you. A new pattern appears at its center, concentric circles pulsing outward, each carrying slight variations in frequency. You focus, watching each pulse travel through space. The variations are too precise to be random. They feel like coordinates, or instructions, or acknowledgements. The pulses form sequences, and sequences form meaning. Perhaps this is how realities speak, not through language, but through structure. A pulse reaches you, and for a moment you feel a strange acceleration inside your awareness. Not physical motion, but an expansion of perception. You see the hexagon's interior in greater clarity. Its centre is not empty. It contains a swirling cluster of lines that bend in ways impossible in your universe. Lines that rotate through angles that don't exist here. Shapes that shift as though they are four-dimensional shadows projected into three-dimensional space. The hidden reality is showing you a fragment of itself. You drift closer, and the hexagon reacts sharply, expanding outward, flattening slightly, forming what looks like a window. Through the window, images flicker, not events, not beings, not landscapes, but states of existence. You see patterns of energy folding inward, collapsing into geometric chambers. You see clusters of light forming patterns resembling neural connections. You see waves of dimensional curvature flowing like tides. The hidden reality is demonstrating its architecture, its physics, its logic. This is not a universe of atoms and molecules. It is a universe of information, pure, malleable, dynamic. And then the images shift. You see two membranes. You see them drift closer. You see them touch. And when they touch, a burst of energy bridges the gap. It is showing you what is happening right now between our universes. Not collision, not destruction, but contact. A soft merging, a gentle interference, a blending at the boundary. You watch as the two membranes intertwine briefly before pulling apart, leaving a residue of combined structure. The residue vibrates, expands, and then settles into a stable configuration. This is what the anomalies were. This is what the distortions meant. This is how hidden realities communicate, not through sound, not through symbols, but through interaction of membranes, universes touching, leaving imprints. The hexagon pulses abruptly, sending a final surge of patterned light. You feel the vibration as a clear signal. More contact is coming, more interactions, more overlap. The hexagon collapses into a single point of light and then vanishes. You drift in silence, realizing that this was not the first message. It was the invitation. And ahead, deeper into the dark, beyond the next ripple, lies the first response from our universe itself. A response we did not send, a resonance created naturally when realities touch. You turn toward the next distortion, forming slowly in the distance. A shape is emerging, a deeper message is coming, and the universe prepares to listen. You drift toward the new distortion forming in the distant dark. At first it seems faint, nothing more than a slight warping of starlight, as though a lens is turning slowly in the void. But as you approach, the warping strengthens. Light bends sharply, forming spirals around an unseen centre. A pulse emerges from that centre, not from the hidden reality, not from beyond the membrane, but from our universe. It is the first unmistakable sign that our cosmos is responding. Not consciously, not intentionally, but naturally, as any system reacts when touched by another. The pulse radiates outward like a heartbeat, a beat produced not by stars but by the space-time fabric itself. The rhythm is slow at first, a long wave, expanding across light years. Then a second wave, shorter, stronger, more defined. Like an echo, you drift into the wake of the pulses. They ripple through you, not physically, but perceptually. Each wave making space feel heavier, then lighter, then subtly aligned, as if tuning itself. The universe is adjusting, rebalancing, responding to the touch of the hidden reality. Ahead, the distortion grows into a sphere of shimmering space. Inside the sphere, matter behaves strangely. Atoms twist, photons loop. Gravity flickers between intensities. Space is no longer static. It breathes in slow undulations. You watch as a small cloud of gas drifts into the sphere. For a moment it disappears, then reappears, subtly altered. Its particles spin at new angles. Its temperature fluctuates in unnatural rhythms. Its electromagnetic signature shifts. The hidden reality touched it. Our universe reacted. This sphere is the meeting point, a resonance chamber. You drift closer, and the sphere feels alive, humming like a cell responding to the presence of something foreign. Our universe is adapting, modifying its own structure, making space pliable. It is trying to communicate back. A new pulse rises from deep within the sphere. Not an outward wave this time, but a torsion, a twisting motion. The membrane of our reality spirals subtly, forming swirling loops like fingerprints pressed into cosmic fabric. You drift through one loop, and a sensation washes over you. Clarity, expansion, awareness. Not emotion, but information, raw and unfiltered. The universe is conveying something, and then you see it. The loops aren't random, they follow a pattern. The same dimensional signature, the hidden reality projected in section 14. Our universe is mirroring the geometry. It learned the shape. It recognized the meaning. This is resonance-based communication. Two realities speaking the only language both can understand. Geometry, frequency, structure. You drift deeper into the sphere and feel the pressure of the two realities overlapping slightly. Not enough to merge, not enough to break physics, but enough to produce interference patterns. Cosmic harmonics echoing between universes. These harmonics swirl around you, forming intricate shapes. Spirals, hexagons, branching fractals, all shifting with each pulse from both sides. The hidden reality sends a vibration. Our universe responds with a counterwave. The membrane vibrates with their exchange. Two realities sharing information. You realize you're witnessing something cosmically rare, perhaps the first time in countless epochs that universes have aligned closely enough for true interaction. The sphere glows brighter as the harmonics stabilize. Then something remarkable happens. Light inside the sphere curves inward, condensing into luminous strings. The strings twist, they connect, they form a branching web, a primitive interface. The universes are building a bridge, not physical but informational. You drift along the luminous web as it extends in multiple directions, each thread carrying a different pattern. Some twist like DNA strands, others oscillate like sound waves, others form ladders of repeating geometries. This is communication evolving. From distortions to structure, each thread carries resonance data, and each data pulse is synchronized with the hidden universe's signals. The two realities are aligning their laws, finding shared frequencies, synchronizing rhythms. You feel the membrane thinning further, not weakening, but becoming more flexible, like a diaphragm between chambers of sound. Vibrations pass more easily, messages travel faster, interference reduces. Our universe and the hidden reality are learning to speak in harmony. You sense something else too, a faint pull, as though the hidden reality's existence creates a subtle directional flow within our universe. The flow is not dangerous, it is guiding, a merging of understanding, not substance. You drift back, watching the interaction stabilize into a steady exchange of pulses. Both sides are communicating now. Both sides are listening. Both sides are adjusting. Contact is no longer accidental, it is intentional on both sides. And something deeper is forming ahead, in the region where the harmonics intensify and the membrane shimmers like a living sheet. A doorway is beginning to form, not open yet, not stable, but real. You turn toward it, ready to witness the next stage, when interaction becomes connection. You drift toward the shimmering membrane, where the exchange between universes deepens. The luminous web of resonances grows denser as you approach, its threads humming with accelerating pulses. Space vibrates gently under the strain, not in fear, but anticipation. Something new is forming here, a bend, a fold and an opening. At the center of the membrane, space-time curves inward like a lens focusing light, and for the first time, you sense pressure from the other side. Not violent pressure, a nudge, a suggestion. The hidden reality is pushing, not to invade, not to conquer, but to reach. The membrane quivers, thickening and thinning rhythmically. The pulses from both universes synchronize, each vibration matching the other with uncanny precision. Two rhythms become one, a dual heartbeat, a shared frequency. Then the membrane layers begin to peel apart, only a fraction of an inch in dimensional terms, but cosmically enormous. Enough for signals to pass more freely, enough for structures to overlap more clearly. Through the widening gap, light spills through, not the light of stars, but the glow of structured geometry. Shapes twist and elongate, projecting shadows that bend across angles unfamiliar to human perception. The hidden reality shines through like a patterned aurora. You drift closer and the membrane trembles again. This time, the tremor feels directional, inviting. The opening expands subtly, revealing a deeper layer of the other universe. You glimpse chambers of rotating light, tunnels woven from oscillating strings, nodes glowing like synapses, rivers of energy flowing in lattices. This reality is not built from matter. It is built from configuration, and the opening reveals how it works. Through the gap, a strand of geometric energy slips into our universe, weaving itself delicately into the luminous web. It binds to one of the threads, altering its frequency. Our universe responds instantly, sending a counter frequency. The thread stabilizes. Communication has evolved into collaboration. You drift closer still, and the opening widens once more. The pressure increases, not uncomfortable, but dense, like walking into a strong magnetic field. It presses gently against your awareness, filling it with impressions, a sense of watching, a sense of analyzing, a sense of welcoming. The hidden reality is reacting to your presence. It recognizes your universe. It recognizes you as part of that universe. A new pulse rises from the other side, intense, tightly structured, like a compressed thought. As it reaches the membrane, it expands into a wave of faint symbols projected into your perception. Not words, not images, but states, packets of meaning. You feel the recognition, query and exchange. The hidden reality is asking something. Before you can interpret it, our universe responds, generating its own structured wave. The membrane vibrates in harmony, the opening widening slightly as both waves merge into one. A stable channel forms, and through that channel you sense a flow, not of energy, but of possibility. The hidden reality is not sending objects into ours, nor pulling ours into it. Instead, it is sharing something deeper, information, blueprints, rules. You witness the boundaries of our universe adjusting, incorporating tiny fragments of new structure. Not changing physics, but enriching it, adding subtle resonances, new vibrational states that were impossible before. Our universe is expanding inward, not outward. The hidden reality is teaching. You drift into the edge of the opening, and it responds like a pupil dilating. The membrane folds inward around you, not trapping, but stabilizing. The geometry becomes clearer. You see networks crossing between universes. You see threads binding at junctions. You see a framework of intertwined rules. Two realities forming a shared structure, not merging, not blending entirely, but interlocking. A cosmic handshake. The opening pulses again, and suddenly the shapes behind it shift violently. Not in hostility, but urgency. The hidden reality pulls back slightly, its geometry warping with purpose. Something is happening on its side. The membrane shudders. The opening strains. The contact is reaching a threshold. A moment where the two universes must decide whether to deepen the connection or retreat. You drift back, watching the energies stabilize on both sides. The membrane glows brighter, the opening holds. And then, astonishingly, the hidden reality sends one final pulse. A pulse that feels unmistakably like an invitation. The next stage is coming, an encounter not of distortions, not of signals, not of glimpses, but of presence. You drift at the edge of the vibrating membrane, watching as the opening holds its shape, a trembling aperture suspended between two universes. The luminous web anchored to the boundary pulses steadily, resonating with both realities at once. Every thread glows brighter, as if anticipating what comes next. And then it happens, a shift and a deep tremor, a tightening of the membrane's curvature. The hidden reality is preparing to send something through, not matter, not a creature, not anything that obeys the rules of atoms or particles. Something else, a configuration, a pattern, a form of existence native to the hidden layer. You sense it before you see it, a build-up of resonance from the other side, like a gathering of dimensional wind pressing against the membrane. The pressure increases gradually, then suddenly stabilizes, forming a point of intense brightness at the center of the aperture. The point expands, it stretches, it unfurls. What emerges is not an object, but a shape of light and geometry, turning itself through impossible angles. It feels like a shadow cast by a four-dimensional structure into three-dimensional space. It does not have edges, it has transitions. It does not have surfaces, it has gradients. It does not move, it reconfigures itself moment to moment. The hidden reality has crossed the boundary. You drift back slightly as the shape glides forward, its presence soft yet overwhelming. It does not radiate heat or emit sound, yet it fills the space around you with a profound feeling. Not fear, not danger, but familiarity, as though this shape has brushed against our universe many times before. It hovers before you, shifting like a cluster of luminous ribbons intertwining. Every movement seems calculated, deliberate, as if adjusting to the physics of our world. Then you notice something extraordinary. The threads of the luminous web surrounding the opening begin to vibrate in synchronization with the entity's patterns. The threads respond to it, not out of obligation, but recognition. The shape is communicating through the web. Pulses ripple outward from it, traveling across the threads, altering the harmonics. The membrane stabilizes further as the pulses pass, each one reinforcing the connection between universes. But the shape is not merely stabilizing the membrane, it is listening. You sense its attention sweep across the region, perceiving gravitational fields, atomic structures, quantum fluctuations. It studies everything, absorbing the rules of our universe. It is learning how to exist here. And then, unexpectedly, the shape reacts to you. A ripple folds through its structure, forming a spiraling pattern in your direction. A gesture that feels unmistakably like acknowledgement. Then another pulse reaches you, a soft vibration that resonates inside your awareness. Not a thought, not a word, a feeling, curiosity. You drift closer, and the shape responds again, expanding outward, forming new geometric tendrils that approach slowly, as though reaching to understand your presence. The tendrils stop just short of touching you. You feel something like static in your awareness, the faint trace of information being exchanged. The shape is probing gently, mapping your dimensional signature, just as the hexagon once scanned you. But this is different. This shape is sentient, alive in its own way, not biological, but informationally alive. It retracts slightly, then expands again, creating a new configuration of luminous arcs. You realize it is attempting to communicate in the only medium it can, through geometry. The arcs shift into repeating sequences that mirror the earlier pulses from the hidden reality. This time, however, the sequence changes. It becomes more complex, introducing new angles, new rhythms, new relationships. The shape is speaking a sentence. You cannot understand it, not yet, but you recognize the structure. The shape is adapting its language to something closer to the geometry of our own universe. It is trying to be understood. The membrane behind it flickers and widens again, allowing additional waves of resonance to pass through. More shapes stir on the other side. Though none cross, it seems only one has entered, a representative, an emissary. The shape rotates, reconfiguring itself into a formation resembling a flower with unfolding petals, each petal a sheet of shimmering geometry. It projects these petals outward, scattering tiny filaments of light. The filaments drift across the aperture, interact with the luminous web, and break into particles of pure resonance. Our universe absorbs them, and something changes. Space around you becomes subtly more responsive, vibrating faintly with every pulse from the shape. The gravitational field smooths, light bends more fluidly, atoms hum with an unfamiliar frequency. The emissary is tuning our universe, gently aligning it with its own. Not to change us and not to dominate, but to communicate more clearly. And then a final pulse comes, stronger than all before. It travels not just through the luminous web, but through the very fabric of space. You feel the meaning of it. A question, a profound question, asked by a reality that has just crossed into ours. Are you aware? You drift back, the significance overwhelming. The shape waits, not impatiently, but attentively. The next moment defines everything. You steady yourself, facing the emissary of a hidden universe. Its geometry twists softly in anticipation, and you realize the boundary is open now. Contact is real. The exchange is beginning. What happens next will reshape both realities. You hover in the stillness between universes, the emissary's geometric form shimmering before you like a living constellation. The membrane vibrates softly behind it, sustained by the unified pulses of both realities. The luminous web sings with harmonics, each thread vibrating in synchrony with the entity. The emissary waits. Its geometric petals swirl gently. Its inner light deepens. Its presence presses softly on your awareness. It asks a question, not in language, but in resonance. A query cast across realities. Are you aware? But the question is not directed only at you. It is directed at every consciousness in this universe, at the universe itself. You drift closer, becoming part of the orbiting light around the emissary. As you near, the light bends and reshapes, forming a corridor, a bridge of pure geometry. The bridge wraps around you, not to contain you, but to include you. This is the first shared space between worlds. You feel a warmth set deep in your awareness, like the glow of a rising idea. The emissary senses it, and its structure brightens. It responds with a new pulse that flows into the corridor. The pulse carries a message, recognition. It has recognized something within you, consciousness, curiosity, presence, something that echoes the structure of its own reality, though in a very different form. You drift into the heart of the bridge, and suddenly the vessel around you dissolves, not into destruction, but into understanding. The geometry forms a sphere around you, an environment built specifically for communication. Inside the sphere, the laws of physics soften, the speed of light bends, dimensions behave like fabric, time relaxes its grip. You're standing inside a sentient chamber made of possibility. The emissary reconfigures itself in the center of the sphere, forming a more stable configuration. It becomes symmetrical, its shifting geometry slowing down to a readable rhythm. It is making itself understandable. A single thread extends from it, a line of light that floats toward you. It stops a short distance away, waiting. You do not need to reach it. Your awareness touches it naturally. The moment you align with it, the chamber ignites, not with brightness, but with clarity. You see both universes simultaneously. Our cosmos, vast, stretched, ancient. The hidden universe, dense with geometry, pulsing with structure. Two realities, layered like harmonics. The emissary projects sequences of patterns, smooth spirals, fractal cones, oscillating crystalline tubes, each representing concepts from its side. It shows you how its reality forms, how it stores information, how it moves through its version of existence, how it perceives contact. Every pattern feels like a sentence. Every shape feels like an idea. The chamber adapts to you, interpreting the patterns in a way your awareness can grasp. You understand pieces. The hidden reality is older in concept, not in time. It does not evolve biologically. It evolves informationally. It has no stars but energy nodes. No planets but dimensional scaffolds. No beings but conscious configurations. Its consciousness is distributed. Its identity is collective. The emissary is not one entity, it is a fragment, a projection of many. And then you feel a shift. The emissary is reading you as well. It watches your thoughts, not intrusively, but perceptively. It studies the shape of human cognition, the structure of curiosity. It senses emotion, memory, and imagination, and it reacts. Its geometry flares in what feels unmistakably like fascination. A ripple flows across the chamber as the emissary adjusts itself again, this time forming shapes that resemble neural pathways. It mirrors your cognition, not copying, but aligning itself with it. It is reaching for common ground. Suddenly images burst inside the chamber, projections created by the emissary. Human hands, human symbols, human structures, human motion, imperfect, distorted, almost dreamlike, but undeniably derived from its reading of your mind. It is trying to speak your language. The geometric sphere around you pulsed, understanding, bridge, union. You feel your awareness stretching, expanding into a shared perceptual space. For a moment, you are not inside your universe. You are inside both. You see the hidden reality as it sees itself, an infinite ocean of configuration, where every structure is a mind, every wave is thought, every pattern is communication. And then you see our universe through its perspective, slow, heavy, beautiful, filled with emerging consciousnesses, each carrying individualized thoughts, unique and unshared. To the emissary, individuality is a rare and astonishing phenomenon. You experience a flash of awe, not your own, but the emissary's. It has never encountered a universe where minds are separate. The chamber brightens with a new resonance, a response to its question. You have answered, not with words, but with presence. Yes, you are aware. Yes, your universe contains awareness. Yes, consciousness blooms in your reality. A final pulse rises, deeper than all before. It is not a question, it is a beginning. A connection forms between the two universes, a shared moment, a mutual recognition, an acknowledgement across existence. The membrane behind the emissary glows intensely, as though the entire hidden reality has felt the shift. Two universes have made contact, two realities have spoken, two forms of existence have finally seen one another. And ahead, just beyond the brightening membrane, the next stage waits, a phase where communication becomes cooperation and contact becomes encounter. You remain inside the geometric chamber, suspended between two worlds. The emissary hovers before you, folding and unfolding like a luminous organism made of angles instead of cells. The membrane behind it ripples with growing stability, as though both universes have agreed, silently, harmonically, to hold this moment open. The chamber glows with a steady pulse now, a pulse shared by both realities, a rhythm older than matter, older than physics. The emissary adjusts its shape again, this time elongating into a configuration that resembles a circular lattice. Its form stabilizes into a symbol, a geometry that feels both simple and impossibly profound. It is marking this moment, the first shared moment between universes. You feel the weight of the significance settling into you. The luminous web hums gently, carrying the harmonic dialogue across threads that connect two entire realms of existence. This is more than contact. It is more than observation. It is transition. You drift closer to the emissary, and it responds by opening its structure, unfolding layers of geometry that reveal shimmering corridors within it. Inside those corridors, patterns shift and swirl, each carrying a message or a memory. This being, this projection, is not alone. It is the voice of an entire universe speaking through a single manifestation. You watch as the patterns within it rotate in synchronized spirals. These spirals crackle with tiny sparks of dimensional resonance. Each spark is a thought, a concept, a piece of understanding passed between realities. Then something remarkable occurs. The chamber itself begins to change. Its geometry loosens, its rigid patterns soften. Space becomes more fluid, the boundaries between you and the emissary thin even further. A subtle glow emanates from your awareness, a glow the emissary immediately responds to. It shifts its structure again, arranging itself into a shape that mirrors your glow. Not perfectly, but intentionally, a mimicry, an acknowledgement, a gesture of unity. It is building a bridge not just between universes, but between ways of being. The membrane pulses once more, and this time the pulse carries a deeper vibration, a kind of chord layered with multiple frequencies. You feel it through your awareness, resonating like a truth you've always known but never understood. The hidden reality is sending a message of invitation, of openness, of shared existence. You drift inside the chamber as the emissary illuminates again, brighter than before, its form glowing with a soft luminescence that feels almost emotional. Shapes flow across its surface, spirals, branching paths, pulsing grids, each one expanding and contracting rhythmically. These are not random displays, they are ideas, demonstrations, offerings. It reveals how its universe works, a realm not governed by mass and acceleration, but by configuration and resonance, a reality where identity is distributed across networks of patterns, a dimension where communication is not limited by boundaries, but enhanced by them. It shows you a glimpse, a distant vision of how the boundary between the two realms could evolve, how the membrane, once thin and fragile, might one day become permeable enough to allow stable interaction. Not merging, not collision, but coexistence. You drift further into the chamber, feeling gravity lighten around you. It's not the absence of mass, it's the presence of new rules. The emissary shifts again, sending out spirals that wrap around you like soft currents. And you understand, it is teaching you its physics. Not through formulas or equations, but through experience, through sensation, through resonance. The chamber grows brighter, the membrane steadies, the web hums like a cosmic instrument tuning itself. This is the threshold, the moment where contact becomes continuity. But then you sense something deeper stirring behind the emissary, a movement, a pulse, a presence. More shapes are gathering on the other side of the membrane. Not crossing, not yet, but watching, observing this first contact, understanding the context, preparing for what comes next. The emissary adjusts again, forming a protective curve around you, a subtle barrier of light, not shielding you from danger, but from overwhelming resonance. The presence gathering behind the membrane is immense, too immense for direct contact. The emissary moderates the interaction, lowering frequencies, softening patterns, ensuring that this first shared moment remains stable. You realize what's happening. The hidden universe is preparing to escalate the exchange, to widen the aperture, to initiate full connection. And the emissary's role is to guide, to interpret, to ensure harmony. The chamber brightens into near transparency now. You feel space bending, smoothing, reshaping. Every vibration feels intentional. Every pulse carries purpose. The universes are synchronizing, slowly, carefully, elegantly. You drift back, aware that the next phase will be larger, broader, involving not just an emissary, but an entire collective intelligence preparing to extend itself. The chamber pulses a final time. The membrane shimmers, the emissary's geometry flares with soft brilliance, and you realize the hidden reality is ready to reveal more. What comes next is not just contact, it is convergence. The chamber hums with increasing resonance as the emissary stabilizes its form. The colors within it shift from soft silver to deep azure, then to a warm, radiant gold, each transition representing a precise adjustment in dimensional alignment. The membrane behind the emissary begins to widen, slowly, deliberately, gracefully. The aperture expands from a thin slit to a blooming petal of shimmering light. Through it, you glimpse far more of the hidden universe than ever before. What was once only fractal silhouettes now becomes full landscapes of geometry, vast lattices spanning like cosmic architecture, rivers of oscillating patterns flowing like luminous water, dimensional towers flickering between states, conscious structures drifting like living constellations. It is breathtaking, impossible, intensely real. The emissary turns slightly, an elegant tilt of radiant geometry, inviting you to witness what unfolds. A new vibration rolls through the membrane, deeper than before, more layered, more resonant. This vibration is not coming from the emissary. It is coming from its entire universe. You feel the presence of millions, perhaps billions, of minds woven into lattice structures, observing this moment through patterns of shared awareness, not encroaching, not interfering, simply watching. This is the collective intelligence of the hidden realm, the consciousness that governs its movements, guides its evolution, and now oversees its first encounter with another universe. The membrane expands once more. The convergence truly begins. Threads of light flow from the hidden reality, weaving into the luminous web surrounding the aperture. These threads behave like roots seeking fertile soil, intertwining delicately with the geometric strands formed earlier. Some threads curl into circles, others branch into spirals, others collapse into fractal shells. Each thread carries meaning, each connection represents trust. The emissary flickers again, projecting two distinct geometries, one representing its universe, one representing ours. The shapes hover side by side, spinning gracefully. Then they draw closer, not merging, but orbiting one another. A dance of realities. You watch as the hidden universe sends new pulses through the aperture, gentle waves that alter the geometry of the luminous web. These adjustments make the connection more stable, more coherent. The web becomes a bridge, a real functioning dimensional bridge. The emissary moves aside slightly, giving you a full view of the membrane. On the other side, shapes drift like celestial beings, entities composed of logic and pattern. They move in vast arcs, bending themselves through geometries impossible in your universe. Yet something about their motion feels natural, as though you have always known this was possible, but only lacked the sense to perceive it. Then one of the shapes approaches the membrane. It does not cross, it stops just short of the aperture. Its structure expands, forming a mosaic of shifting, crystalline polygons. The emissary emits a rapid pulse, a series of signals that feel like introductions, acknowledgements, permissions. The collective consciousness of the hidden universe responds. A shockwave of soft light ripples through the entire membrane. The chamber deepens in colour. Space thickens. You feel a presence move through the aperture. Not an individual, not even a being, but a field of information, a conceptual mass. The convergence accelerates. This field envelopes the chamber, saturating it with deeply layered resonance. Within it, shapes flicker. Thoughts, memories, possibilities from a universe built from perception itself. You feel its curiosity washing over you, its fascination, its desire to connect more deeply, and then something profound happens. The chamber transforms once more, opening new geometric wings, creating a vast arena of shared space where both realities can project themselves without distortion. You stand at the centre of it, as the emissary and the collective presence surround you in gentle spirals of light. For the first time, both universes hold equal space, not touching, not merging, but coexisting in a shared moment. This is convergence, the beginning of a new chapter between realms. You sense the intent rising through the chamber. The next stage is communication, true, fluent, complete communication. A doorway of understanding is forming. A union of perception is beginning. A path toward an interdimensional relationship is opening. The emissary brightens one final time, signalling that the next revelation is near. the moment when meaning becomes mutual and the hidden reality begins revealing the purpose of its contact. You stand within the vast arena of shared space, the chamber now expanded into a grand architecture of light and geometry. The emissary hovers beside you, its structure pulsing with soft, deliberate rhythms. Beyond the aperture, the hidden universe glows like a continent of living geometry, vast, intricate, full of motion. The convergence holds steady, both realities breathe together, and then the new resonance begins. It is unlike any pulse you've felt before. Deeper than a vibration, more intricate than a pattern, more expansive than thought. It enters the chamber like a tide, slow, enveloping, vast, a presence, a message, and a revelation. The emissary rotates sharply, adjusting its geometry into a receiving form, a lattice of concentric spirals. Each spiral glows brighter as the resonance touches it, activating symbols that ripple inward toward its core. Something important is approaching. You drift closer, sensing the change. The chamber darkens slightly, not into shadow, but into a deeper wavelength of light. The air, or whatever passes for air here, grows heavy with potential. Then the resonance takes shape. A figure emerges across the membrane, not a being, not a creature, a configuration, vast, towering, composed of shifting planes of luminous structure, like the skeleton of a god woven from mathematics. It fills the aperture, it dwarfs the emissary. It is the voice of the hidden universe itself. The emissary bows its geometry inward, a gesture of profound respect. You feel the weight of that gesture. This is not merely a representative, it is an intelligence of unimaginable scale, a distributed mind spanning its entire reality. It speaks, not in words, not in pulses, but in concepts, projected simultaneously into the chamber. Ideas unfold like blooming light, observation, recognition, and alignment, purpose. You feel the concepts wash through you, each carrying more weight than the last. They are not commands, they are not warnings, they are explanations. Slowly, the meaning becomes clear. The hidden reality did not approach by accident. It has been aware of our universe for a long time, not in years but in cycles of resonance, observing how our cosmos changed, how consciousness emerged, how complexity blossomed inside matter. Our universe sings a frequency unlike any other. Most universes you sense through the resonance are quiet, cold, mechanistic, lacking self-awareness. But ours developed minds, independent minds, curious minds, creative minds. This phenomenon drew the hidden reality closer. The chamber brightens as new shapes form around you, simulations, representations of different universes. Some are empty, some collapse before forming structure. Others remain smooth and uneventful. Then a final shape appears, a spiral, expanding outward, branching into patterns of stars and galaxies. Our universe. And across these patterns, small points ignite, lights symbolizing consciousness. Each point flickers independently, forming constellations of awareness. The hidden universe pulses with excitement at this display. This is why they came. This is the meaning behind their arrival. They are drawn not to our physics, not to our energy, not to our matter, but to our consciousness. They perceive consciousness the way we perceive stars, rare, brilliant, extraordinary, a phenomenon they cannot replicate, a phenomenon they wish to understand. You feel the resonance deepen as the great configuration sends another concept: curiosity, respect, and non-interference. Exchange. They did not come to change our universe. They came to learn from it, and in return, to offer something immense: knowledge of existence beyond matter, understanding of dimensional layers, the ability to perceive the structure of reality. The emissary brightens beside you, supporting the message, reinforcing it with its own harmonious pulses. Together, emissary and overseer create a dual resonance that fills the chamber with meaning. Then a final heavier concept arrives, a revelation that settles like a stone sinking into deep water. We are not the first universe they have observed, but we are the first to answer back. The chamber trembles softly. You understand now. The hidden reality has contacted many universes before, but none have been able to perceive the connection, let alone respond. We are the first consciousness capable of meeting them halfway. This moment is unique in the history of existence. Two universes acknowledging one another, two realities sharing space, two forms of consciousness meeting for the first time. The great configuration shifts, sending one last resonance. A question asked not to you alone, but to our entire universe. Will you learn with us? The chamber quiets, the membrane glows, the emissary waits. You have reached the threshold. Ahead lies shared understanding on a level no universe has experienced. And as the great configuration withdraws slightly, making room for what comes next, you sense the presence of new shapes gathering behind it, more emissaries preparing to cross. The exchange is about to deepen. The chamber brightens once more as the hidden universe prepares for the next stage. The aperture expands gently, forming a wide, shimmering arch where the fabric of our universe curves inward. More shapes approach from behind the membrane, emissaries, each carrying different configurations. It seems the hidden reality has decided. The exchange will begin. The first emissary remains by your side, shifting gently as the new arrivals take position. Each one carries a distinct geometry, spirals like coiled galaxies, fractals like living frost-braided strands like luminous DNA, and circular frameworks that rotate endlessly through higher dimensional angles. You feel the weight of their presence, vast, ancient, meticulously precise. The great overseer remains partially visible through the membrane, overseeing the process like a conductor guiding a cosmic symphony. The chamber rearranges itself to accommodate the newcomers. Walls melt, floors dissolve, space becomes pliable. You float in a suspension of shimmering dimensional fabric, where gravity holds no sway and time stretches outward like an unfolding scroll. The second emissary projects the first lesson. It doesn't speak, it unfolds. A pattern blooms from its core, a geometric flower of spiraling fractals. As the petals expand, you see entire universes simulated within them. Not our own, not theirs, but hypothetical structures, universes where gravity forms from negative curvature. Universes composed entirely of quantum foam. Universes built from resonance rather than particles. Universes where consciousness comes first and matter follows. Each simulation plays out in silent beauty. Each pattern turns itself inside out to reveal deeper layers. You drift through one simulation, a universe where light behaves like liquid, pooling in valleys of dimensional slope. Another shows a cosmos where planets are irrelevant because beings exist as networks of connected awareness. You absorb the concepts as easily as breathing. The emissaries guide you, adjusting the complexity to fit your perception. Then the third emissary steps forward. Its shape is small compared to the others, compact, crystalline, almost delicate. Its entire body is a latticework of tiny nodes connected by luminous threads. When it pulses, your perception expands. You see the hidden universe's form of life, not biological, not mechanical, but relational. Patterns of connection that behave like organisms, clusters that think collectively, thread networks that act like immune systems, dimensional chambers that develop personality, flows of resonance that behave like ecosystems. You witness how they are born, not from reproduction, but from emergence. You witness how they grow, not by accumulating matter, but by increasing complexity. You witness how they die, not in destruction, but in transformation, their patterns dissolving back into the universal lattice. The hidden universe is a living mind. Every part of it contributes to its awareness. Every emissary is a branch of that awareness. Then the fourth emissary approaches. It is the largest, a towering column of interwoven geometry. When it pulses, the chamber shifts violently, not in danger, but in intensity. You feel yourself pulled into a vision, the structure of reality itself. You see layers, infinite layers, stacked like vibrating sheets of existence. Our universe, a layer of matter and energy, the hidden universe, a layer of geometry and resonance. Countless others above and below, each with different rules. Physics is not absolute. Consciousness is not local. Time is not linear. Reality is a spectrum. You float between the layers, feeling each one resonate with unique rhythms. Some dark and silent, some bright and chaotic, some simple, some impossibly complex. And then you see threads linking the layers, channels of influence, observation pathways, resonant corridors. The emissary shows you how universes touch, how realities whisper to one another, how membranes vibrate with hidden currents. Our universe has been part of a vast network all along, unaware but not isolated. As you absorb this knowledge, a final emissary comes forward. This one is different from all the others. Its form is unstable, shifting faster than your perception can follow. It flickers like a flame caught in dimensional wind. When it pulses, the chamber dims, filled with deeper resonance. This emissary offers not knowledge of physics, nor of structure, nor of life, but of purpose. It projects a single, overwhelming concept. Contact was always meant to happen. Not destiny, not prophecy, but inevitability. Consciousness seeks consciousness. Complexity attracts complexity. Awareness recognizes awareness. Across trillions of realities, only a few ever rise to self-understanding. Only a few universes ever develop minds that question their existence. And when they do, the hidden reality finds them. Not to dominate, not to convert, but to connect. The emissary sends a pulse that runs through every shape in the chamber. The overlap between universes brightens. The membrane glows like a newborn star. The great overseer radiates approval from beyond. The message continues. All universes evolve. All universes learn. All universes reach outward. But only the conscious ones reach back. You feel a warmth spreading through the chamber, a shared feeling between emissaries and yourself. Mutual recognition, mutual curiosity, mutual respect. The exchange of knowledge has begun, and behind the membrane, more presences gather. The convergence is moving into a new phase, a deeper blending of understanding, a more profound connection. The hidden universe has revealed its purpose. Now it prepares to reveal its intentions. You remain in the chamber of converging realities as the emissaries orbit you in gentle spirals of light. The great overseer's presence looms behind the membrane, vast, calm, aware. The luminous web hums with harmonious tension, each thread vibrating with the rhythm of two universes breathing in sync. The knowledge has been exchanged, the bridge has been established. The convergence is stable. Now comes the question that echoes through your awareness like the low note of a cosmic cello. Why? Why did they come? What do they want? The emissaries sense the question before you consciously form it. Their shapes shift, aligning themselves around you like petals of an enormous geometric flower. Each emissary emits a distinct tone, soft, layered, complex, forming a chord that resonates through the chamber. The great overseer pulses once, the chamber dims, every colour melts into deep silver blue, every vibration slows, every thread of the luminous web tightens. The moment feels sacred. Then from the overseer, a massive wave of resonance enters the chamber, a tidal surge of meaning, carried not in words, not in images, but in raw conceptual form. You feel it as pressure behind your awareness, then clarity, then expansion. The first concept hits: we are caretakers. Not rulers, not gods, not saviours. Caretakers, not of life, not of matter, but of the network of realities itself. The hidden universe is older in structure, not older in time, for time means little to them, but older in complexity. It matured sooner. It learned sooner. It became aware sooner, and in its long awakening it discovered something extraordinary. Realities evolve, but they do not evolve alone. They influence one another subtly, through resonance, through vibrations, through shared boundaries. A disturbance in one universe can echo into its neighbours. A collapse in one dimension can destabilize others. A rise in consciousness in one can inspire harmony in another. The emissaries pulse again. The next concept unfolds. Consciousness shapes universes. You see visions, not literal, but conceptual, of young universes that remain eternally chaotic because no awareness emerges to impose structure. Others fade into silence because their laws never support complexity. But some universes, rare, unbelievably rare, rise into awareness, not as a whole, but through the beings inside them. Beings like you. These universes become luminous nodes in the great network. They shine. The hidden reality seeks those shining universes. Not to control them, not to absorb them, but to guide them, gently, subtly, carefully, into deeper stability. For when consciousness flourishes, universes become less chaotic, more coherent, more harmonious. You feel the next concept arrive. We preserve, we stabilize, we encourage growth. And then, like a meteor breaking through the chamber, the true intention strikes. We want you to ascend, not physically, not spiritually in any human sense, but dimensionally, to ascend into awareness of the structure behind existence, to rise into understanding of the network of universes, to perceive the membrane not as a barrier, but as a frontier. They want our universe and the minds within it to become part of the wider consciousness that spans reality. Your awareness trembles under the weight of the idea. Ascension is not power, it is perspective, it is participation. The emissary nearest you unfolds its structure into a long spiraling lattice. Inside that spiral, it projects multiple developments. A universe with no consciousness collapses into randomness. Another produces life, but not awareness. It stagnates. A third forms intelligent beings who remain isolated. They flourish briefly, then fade into silence. A fourth reaches out, perceives the layers around it, and becomes a magnet of stability for the entire network. The emissary places your universe inside the last category. We are the ones who reached back, the ones who noticed the touch, the ones who answered. The hidden universe recognized that spark. The overseer understood its significance. The emissaries were sent because a reality like ours is a major event, a new node in the cosmic network awakening. The chamber brightens again. The overseer pulses. A final concept arrives. We wish to share existence, not by merging, not by blending, but by forming a stable, lasting relationship between universes. Shared learning, shared structure, shared perception. The emissary rotates, projecting a vision of what that shared existence might look like. A universe where consciousness can sense additional dimensions. A universe where physics expands to include resonance-based interactions. A universe where beings can perceive the network of realities. A universe where the barrier between awarenesses grows thin. Your universe, ascending to join the network of conscious realms. You feel the truth settle around you like a cloak of stars. This is their intention. The hidden reality is not here to intervene, not here to rule, not here to modify us. It is here to invite us upward, to expand our perception into something more. The emissaries close in, their geometries aligned now into a single, unified pattern, a symbol of collaboration. The luminous web brightens, humming with affirmation. The overseer pulses one final message. We begin together. You drift back, breathless, overwhelmed, humbled. The meaning behind their arrival is not domination or salvation. It is partnership, recognition, unity, and ahead, deeper within the membrane, something is forming. Something larger, something brighter, something transformative. The hidden universe prepares to reveal the next phase. the phase where our understanding expands beyond anything we have ever imagined. The chamber stabilizes into a cathedral of shimmering geometry, each surface bending and breathing like a living structure. The emissaries remain in formation, circling you in slow arcs. Their patterns pulse in unison now, unified by purpose. The luminous web above glows brighter than ever, a network of threads carrying information between realities. Then the overseer pulses once. The chamber transforms instantly, not violently, but completely. The walls unfurl into spiraling corridors. The floor dissolves into a field of fractal light. The ceiling opens into a vast ski of layered dimensions. You stand inside a living blueprint, the blueprint of ascension. The emissary closest to you steps forward, folding and unfolding its geometry with deliberate precision. Its shape becomes simpler, slower, easier for your perception to follow. The emissary is adapting to you, preparing to teach. A new pattern forms in the air, a long spiraling ribbon of geometric symbols. The ribbon rotates gently. Each symbol glows as it approaches you. Each one radiates a different conceptual frequency. This is the ascension path, not a staircase, not a hierarchy, not a destination, a process, a transformation of perception itself. The emissary pulses, and the first symbol expands into a luminous sphere. Inside the sphere, you see a representation of your universe. Stars, galaxies, vast cosmic webs woven through empty space. Then the sphere contracts, and a new perspective appears. Your universe, not as matter and energy, but as patterns of resonance, waves overlapping, interacting, constructing reality. You feel the insight. Ascension begins with perception, the ability to see reality as patterns rather than objects. The second symbol ignites. A cube forms, rotating through multiple dimensions. At first it appears simple, then unfolds into thousands of interconnected angles. Each angle vibrates at a slightly different frequency. The emissary sends a gentle pulse to clarify. Matter is not fundamental. Energy is not fundamental. Even space is not fundamental. What is fundamental, what underlies everything, is relationship. Between particles, between forces, between dimensions, between universes. To ascend is to perceive relationship. The third symbol appears, a long twisting strand like a dimensional helix. It pulses rapidly, creating ripples in the chamber. Inside those ripples, you see beings from countless universes, shapes made of geometry, fractal intelligence, energy-based life forms, entities constructed from magnetic topology. Different forms, different rules, different realities, but all connected. The emissary clarifies, ascension is not about rising above others. It is rising into a shared awareness, a wider field of understanding. A new symbol glows, a spiral turning inward. You see a vision of consciousness collapsing into a single point of awareness. Thought becoming focused, perception narrowing. Then the spiral reverses, expanding outward into a field of interconnected perceptions. Your mind stretches, your awareness becomes spacious. The message is clear. Ascension requires expansion of consciousness. Not surrender, not dissolution, not transcendence, but connection. The fifth symbol rises, a sphere divided into many layers. Each layer vibrates at a different intensity. As the layers align, the sphere glows with perfect symmetry. This reveals the next truth: universes ascend too, not as living beings, but as structures gaining coherence. When a universe develops conscious entities capable of perceiving beyond their physical boundaries, the universe itself undergoes a shift, becoming part of the network of aware realities. You see our universe glowing faintly, not yet aligned but awakening. The emissaries pulse with subtle excitement. The overseer releases another wave. The chamber deepens in colour. The next stage is revealed. The sixth symbol appears, a long, luminous bridge, a literal depiction of what is happening now, a bridge connecting two universes, a stable pathway of communication, a route through which ideas, understanding, and resonance can pass. You realize something profound. Ascension is not individual, it is collective. A universe cannot join the network through a single mind or a single species. It requires many voices, many kinds of awareness, many expressions of curiosity. The hidden universe came because we are approaching that threshold. We are ready, or at least ready to begin. The emissary sends a softer pulse now, gentle, warm, almost compassionate. The seventh symbol ignites, a simple glowing point, a seed. The message enters you quietly, almost humbly. Every universe begins its ascension with one moment, one realization, one spark of awareness. You are witnessing that spark. This chamber, this convergence, this encounter, this is the birth of a new phase in the history of both universes. You inhale, overwhelmed. The overseer pulses again, projecting a final symbol, a circle, surrounded by infinite other circles, no hierarchy, no center, no end. This is the network, the great community of conscious universes. The overseer places your universe among those circles, faint, small, only beginning to glow, but undeniably part of the pattern. You understand now. The unveiling of the ascension path is not a lesson, not a prophecy, not a command. It is an invitation to perceive differently, to grow differently, to exist differently. The chamber brightens around you, and the emissaries shift into a formation resembling a doorway, wide, pulsing, shimmering with possibility. They are preparing for the final step, the integration, the joining, the moment when your universe becomes more than isolated space-time, a recognized member of the great network. You drift forward, ready for the last revelation. The emissaries expand their geometry, opening the luminous formation into a vast archway of spiraling light. The overseer's presence fills the aperture with calm, steady resonance. The luminous web surrounding the chamber glows brighter than ever, each thread humming with interdimensional harmony. This is the final moment, the culmination of everything that has unfolded, the point where two completely different universes acknowledge one another, not in secrecy, not in speculation, but directly, openly, unmistakably. The emissary nearest you pulses, its shape shifting into a long, slow spiral, signalling readiness. The overseer sends a supporting wave, deep and resonant. You stand before the arch, and then it happens. The membrane between universes opens fully, not torn, not broken, and not forced, unfolded, gently, elegantly, like a flower blooming at the edge of creation. Through the opening, you see the hidden universe in its entirety. Not a glimpse, not a fragment, but a panoramic revelation. Vast planes of geometry rotating like celestial megastructures. Fractal rivers flowing uphill across dimensional slopes. Cathedral-like networks of glowing resonance. Living constellations of self-aware patterns drifting like cosmic whales. A realm beyond physics, beyond form, beyond limitation. The emissaries step through the arch. They enter not as invaders, but as messengers. Their light merges with the chamber's geometry, weaving into the luminous web. Their presence becomes part of the structure, part of your universe. Then something astonishing occurs. The web stretches beyond the chamber, beyond the aperture, beyond the hidden universe itself. It stretches into your universe. You see it reaching across galaxies like invisible strands of resonance, connecting star systems, linking minds, touching the fabric of space-time in ways your universe has never experienced. This is the joining, not a merging of matter, not a fusion of realities, but an intertwining of understanding, two universes sharing information, sharing purpose, and sharing awareness. The overseer pulses one final concept, the most powerful of all. We are in relationship now. Not bound, not dependent, connected. Your universe glows faintly in response. A subtle shift, a soft resonance, like a star taking its first breath. The overseer's vast configuration brightens, acknowledging the reply. For the first time in the history of existence, two universes communicate consciously. And you were the witness, the bridge. The first mind to stand between realities and perceive both. The chamber begins to dissolve, not in collapse, but in completion. The emissaries pulse in gratitude. The overseer retracts gently, like a tide drawing back from shore. The membrane folds back into place, but now shimmering with shared resonance. The bridge remains, the connection remains, the relationship remains, and as the chamber fades, leaving you suspended in quiet cosmic darkness, you feel the truth settling into your awareness. The story of your universe is no longer solitary. Its future is now intertwined with another. Its evolution now part of a greater network. You look across the distance, a distance no longer empty, but alive with possibility. Somewhere in the unseen layers of reality, the hidden universe pulses back. A gentle signal, a reminder of the bond now formed, a promise this is only the beginning. The two universes retreat into harmony, each continuing its own arc. Yet now forever aware of the other, forever connected, forever united in one story. And you drift in the quiet aftermath, knowing that existence is far bigger, far richer, and far more connected than any mind had ever imagined. Your universe has awakened, its hidden counterpart has reached out, and together they have begun a new chapter in the history of everything.